Well, good morning. It's 9:01 on this beautiful sunny March day, March 7th. Welcome, everyone. And I have asked our road superintendent, Mike Cognetti, to come up and help us in the Pledge of Allegiance, our fearless road warrior. Thank you, Mike, for agreeing to do this. Will you all please stand? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. Before we start our oral communications, I'd just like to give a brief overview. For those of you who want to come up and speak, it should be on some announcement or something that is not on the agenda. And if you don't have an agenda, there's one on that table for you. And just know that we are listening to you. We're not supposed to make comments back and forth when you come up to the podium, and you have 3 minutes to speak. And as I've done every meeting since the beginning of this year, I also like to set the tone for the meeting, and because we all know that we are here to support each other. This community comes together whenever there's anything that we need to rally around. We do that as a community, and we expect the same here in this boardroom. Of course, civility and respect for each other, but I like to add a little note of kindness. And so with that, each meeting I start off with some quote from somebody you've probably heard of, and in this case, it's from Plato. He was born in 424 BC, if you didn't already know that, a long time ago. And here's what he had to say. Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a harder battle. All right, so with that, we'll start oral communications. Anyone who would like to come up to the podium and speak? Go ahead and switch it on. It's on the side there somewhere.
Is that better?
That's better,
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning. I'm super happy to be here this morning because I've spent approximately 30 miles behind my snow blower in the last week and a half. So it's been quite the struggle, but you know, I'm sure I'm not the only one in the county. So it's funny how we a few months ago were praying for rain. We were praying for so much rain that our reservoirs would be full, and now I think we are praying that the rain would stop. So anyways, I am here to pray, and I'm thankful that Mike, my good friend Mike, is here today because I've actually come today to pray for issues specific to his job. So let me begin. Good morning, God. I just want to thank you so much for all this rain. In the almost 50 years that I've lived in California, I don't think I've ever seen a normal year. It seems to always just be drought or deluge, but you always seem to come through right when we need it, Lord. Thank you for that. And with all this rain, of course, and snow comes a lot of work. So I really just want to lift up Mike Cognetti and the entire roads crew to you, Lord, and just give them endurance. It's just amazing the amount of work that they're out there doing right now. So I pray for their strength. I pray for their equipment. I pray for their safety, Lord. And as we transition from what appears to be mostly snow to some significant rain coming, I just pray that the likely flooding that will occur as a result of that will not do any additional damage to our roads, Lord, and that as the workers are out there working, that it will remain a safe situation. And then as we transition from that, Lord, into a season of repair and maintenance. We know that's going to be a heavy lift with all the damage that's been done, especially in the last couple weeks, Lord. And we pray that they would again have perseverance, that they would have the funds and the equipment and the staff that they need, Lord. And I ask you to remove any political or bureaucratic red tape that might stand in the way of them being able to get done what needs to get done, Lord. And I just ask that you would help us to take our roads from a state of disrepair into a state of repair, Lord. And as always, I just pray for this meeting, for your presence here as everyone in this room goes about the business of running this county, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Tablets. Good morning to all me county supervisors and all that are listening in the county and beyond. God bless you. My name is Kathy Facilla, and I am a member of the GSAC board. And I wanted to let you know, in case you didn't know, that one of our volunteers has been using one of our transport buses and picking up people from all over the county that are in need and bringing them here so they will be safe and warm during the night. I don't know how many days that's going to continue, but I feel very honored that we were able to do that for the people that need it in the county. By the way, anybody who wants to donate for gas, we would really appreciate it. The second thing is also I was given permission by our board to let you know that we would like to continue this kind of thing on a more regular basis with all sorts of help from the county and knowing how better to assist the people of Tuolumne to get where they need to go. So in addition to your transport. And I wanted to let you know also that we are having a fundraiser in May, and it will be a dinner and a dance and a raffle, and we are we just started looking for gifts. You can check us out on our website, GSAC, and it will let you know the information that we have now. We're just getting started, so we will continue to keep it updated as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome.
Morning. My name is Ross Gamble. I'm a lead pilot with PHI Air Medical, and I just want to speak briefly on Pine Mountain Lake and what asset that is to us in our company. Some of you may know the company. We fly Air Medical helicopter, and we fly the surrounding area here. We have another helicopter at the Modesto base, but we're kind of your first point of contact for this area and for Pine Mountain Lake. You get a call if somebody's hurt, about 15 minutes we're on the ground to Pine Mountain Lake. And usually I can beat the ambulance there even. But the question is, why do we need Pine Mountain Lake in our business? It's an airport that handles airplanes, but we're a helicopter. Well, I'll tell you, we need about 100 by 100 area to land a helicopter, with the exception of the mountains, because then we get 100 or 200 foot trees out there. So if somebody's in a car wreck, there's no place to land a helicopter on the side of the road, like the valley. So that airport is just essential to us. We hear a Pine Mountain Lake call. I don't have to flight plan it. We don't have to have coordination on the ground with the fire crew. I land at one place, picked out on the airport by the fuel pumps, and then usually a fire truck will meet us there. We wait for the ambulance, and we can then haul that patient down to higher level of care being Modesto, Sacramento, or even Fresno. And so that's a great asset for us right there and for the community to be able to land there. And it's great because there's no obstructions there. In our business, if we get that wrong, we're into a power line, we're into other hazardous areas. Even landing a helicopter off airport, you can land in a dusty area, and they call it a brownout condition. It can be a condition that you can't see out the window to fly it, and the helicopter can actually crash. In our industry, that happens across the country sometimes. So that's just a great asset to get to. So there's times that I'm going to fly not only just to Pine Mountain Lake Airport, if I'm flying up to Yosemite, where we know we get this herd of tourists all year round up there, and there's times that if I fly directly from Columbia to Yosemite, I'm over some of the most hazardous terrain to fly over. If that single engine helicopter quits, I'm at the bottom of a valley out there, and then who's going to come get me at the bottom of a canyon at 2 o'clock in the morning? Nobody. It's going to be a long, hard thing. So I offset my course, and I have all the pilots in there you do it to fly over top of Pine Mountain Lake Airport. In the event of emergency, I can land on the airport. And so that's a couple sides of that to look at. Another side is Pine Mountain, how it's important to my industry, being a pilot, that if you have some sort of incident like a big fire up here, a mass casualty incident, we could run a bunch of helicopters into that airport. They did that over at some other airports local in the area if you have fires in the Yosemite area. So what happens is they can run a bunch of, make it a helicopter attack base, and they'll line them up down the runway. They'll bring fuel trucks in and water, and they can handle that there. But you can't do that at some ball fields. You can't do that at other areas. So anyhow, that's why Pine Mountain Lake is essential to us. And we can support.
Thank you very much.
Better. All right, thank you very much for having me.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Marta Manzaranes. I think you guys got my email the day before yesterday, and Jaron, thank you for responding. Public Works website states that the county received $11.3 million in 2021. Jaron's, email to me yesterday stated that they received $200 million to $400 million. He also mentioned $6 million, but they got $11.3 million. Also, they received $70 million from grant funding for roads. This report talks about needing $200 million. County said that they dedicated sales. Oh, sorry. I got off on the wrong thing here. Okay. The report talks about needing $200 million. The county said that they dedicated sales tax for the roads, while claiming sales tax stays in the county, which would allow the county to compete for state and federal grants. But my concern is really what this is that, in other words, the people need to pay taxes, and you're going to use the taxpayers' money in the form of grants, right? So the more money that we pay, the more grants you can apply for. So I want to know about the other $200 million. I'd also like to know why this partnership with the Sierra Business Council is a violation of the Constitution, and you know it, and I know it. I know it came through the state, but you know that it came from the UN. All of you know that. The UN had $15 million donated by the United States. And we, in turn, are following their direction because we're part of the UN, correct? So the governor, who is a world economic leader, is pushing this on California and other states. And Anaya, your comment to me about maybe I should quit Facebooking and get out and help my community is an insult. I don't see you out there shoveling ice berms. And what about EMS? I'm telling you, Saturday night, they wouldn't have made it to Tuolumne to any kind of calls. A shortage in drivers? They work hard, but working them overtime and knowing that they are limited to a certain amount of hours, and being shorthanded is no excuse. And I know you like to
Thank you.
go on about that. Yeah, thank you. Do your job.
Anybody else? Good morning.
Good morning. I just want to preface my comments by saying that from the time I was 10 till I was 19 years old, my dad was a county supervisor over at Inyo County. So I know well the amount of time you put into this and the frustrations you sometimes face. I also want to tell you, I live in Calaveras County, but as you know, our counties are inextricably linked, and one of those areas is healthcare, and that's what I'm here to talk about today. So in 2019, I was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and since I have a captive audience, let me just tell you, if you have GERD or acid reflux, get that checked out. It probably saved my life. I underwent a surgery to have my entire esophagus removed, and since then, I've had to undergo 2 more surgeries. All of this work has been done at Stanford. But what I'm here to talk to you today about, in February of 2021, you probably remember, this board approved an ambulance fee increase of 50%. You asked diligent questions when you did that, and I felt like you approved that increase reluctantly, but in the end that you did that. Mr. Boyack and Mr. Caldera, they did a fantastic job of presenting information about why that increase was necessary. What they didn't do was explain to you what an increase like that might look like on an individual basis, and that's kind of what I want to share with you today. I was transported from Sonora Adventist to Stanford Medical Center. The surgery was completed. I spent about a week in recovery. After that, though, I received a bill from Tuolumne County Ambulance in the amount of $14,707, about $9,000 of which was paid by my insurance company, but indicating that I was responsible for the remaining $6,000. I've filed 2 separate appeals with Anthem Blue Cross, my insurance company. They've indicated they are not going to pay any more towards this claim. They use a measure that they call necessary and appropriate when meeting out-of-pocket costs. And what they've determined is that this cost levied by Tuolumne County Ambulance meets neither of those. It's above and beyond what they would deem necessary and appropriate. I've done quite a bit of research, and I'm going to leave you with a packet here of information that indicates that Tuolumne County ambulance charges, particularly the $81 per mile that you're charging, exceed the charges of just about anywhere else that I can find in the state. You guys are probably aware in 2022, the federal government enacted legislation called the No Surprise Balance Billing Act, which prevents consumers like me from being billed with a surprise bill for charges in excess of insurance. But there's some loopholes that have been left that absolve ground ambulances from coverage. And I have some information regarding that too. Currently, there's a federal committee meeting to try to resolve those loopholes. 10 states have already enacted legislation to close those loopholes. So we're seeing a change that's occurring here. What I'm really here today is just because I feel like this is the next appropriate step in this process to try to get people to look at not only my bill, but how this impacts other people as well. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Hello there.
Hello, my name is John Flynn, your political watchdog. And say good morning to County of Tuolumne Corporation. You have an ID number. I got to write in here. I forgot all my notes, so I'm going to have to wing it this morning. And Columbia College, Community College, is offering a course how to chew gum and talk to people at the same time, or public servants. And I got a D-, so I'm going to stick it up here because I'm not coordinated for that. So now I can talk better. So starting off here, I was told to say hi all to the legal department. Hello there, and there's Cody, and I was supposed to say, not me, that was from somebody else. And I said, okay. And then I was also supposed to say that a guy named Philip A. Pimentel, he doesn't have a license to practice law at the courthouse. And so all his cases have to be redone at the taxpayer's expense. That's been brought out. And you've all been notified of that. And correspondence by electronic email. And then let's see, what else are we going? And then I'd like to touch on the climate action plan that you guys approved on November 8th, and or not November, you approved, but in April of 2022, you approved it, and Cody Nepster was the lawyer, and when you had all the nonprofits, partners, and stake, there were no address, no emails, no phone numbers. How much money was spent on this? Which I probably could get a FOIA request on that and get the information on that later. We'll go out next subject. What is the road guy? I don't have my notes here. The guy who gave the road department for the Pledge of Allegiance. This is going to be a little corny. When you guys, if you get an all expenses paid trip to North Pole, Alaska, and you're wearing your Tuolumne County caps and displaying who you work for, what kind of caps do you wear while you're up there for your caps? Do anybody know? No? They wear ice caps. It's a dad's joke. Listen, that's gonna happen. Okay, it's at the dinner table tonight. Okay, I don't have my notes, so I'm winging it to the best of my ability. What else are we gonna talk about? I'm drawing a blank here. Oh, I was gonna talk about the State of Jefferson revival. I talked to somebody, not Dave, somebody else, and I was told to shut my mouth immediately. So I can't go into that. That totally threw me off. For 3 weeks, I was practicing that, and done. So I thank you. I'm all done here. And 4 seconds.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chairman. I don't know where it's chairman, chairperson, whatever anymore. You can't tell with all these word games.
I think I'm just a chair.
You're the chair. Good morning. Okay. And board members. I want to comment a little bit on the ambulance fee that the gentleman talked about. That's not really why I came today, but when he brought it up, my wife had to be transported by ambulance from our home in Columbia on her birthday, January 9th. She had severe pneumonia, and we got a bill for $3,800. And that's like, holy mackerel. So it does have a really huge impact. We haven't heard, how much the insurance will cover. We don't know that, but I do know I have one friend who did not have any insurance and had to have his wife transported, and it was a similar amount from Campbell Flat Road. So it's, when it gets right down to an individual basis, it's a big hit. So maybe there's something to the board to consider at some point when that comes up again, how that can be dealt with. Maybe it can't be, because how do you put a value on a life? Difficult thing to do. I came to talk a little bit, give you a little history lesson. I thought I might do this from time to time. I was Carlo Di Ferrari, who was the county clerk and auditor and also our esteemed county historian, was my mentor. He hired me in March the 10th, 1969. He hired me to work. I worked on budgets, worked primarily on elections because the clerk and auditor did elections, which she still does. And I learned a lot about county government because when I was hired, I knew nothing. He hired me on faith that somehow I had the requisite background to do the job. But I was there for about 2.5 years, and I moved on to the assessor's office. But before I did, the county instituted Article 2.12 of the County Ordinance Code. Do you know what that is? I know your county administrator does know. It was the creation of the county administrative position and the delegated authority that goes with it. And the county statistician, Ernie Condi, was essentially an executive secretary to the Board of Supervisors. He had no delegated authority, just de facto authority, but the board made all the decisions. And when the board created the county administrative position, he said, well, Dave, you see the beginning of an empire, because all they do is build empires, and guess what? Some 50 years later, we have an empire.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes, come on up.
Hi, sorry I'm late. I just want to introduce myself. I'm Stephanie Reichley, and I'm here with the League of Women Voters of the Motherlode Observer Corps. So we promote transparency and accountability in government, and I hope me being here helps that. Thanks.
Thanks for being here. Hello and welcome.
Good morning. I want to thank you for those of you who asked me to promise to always speak after our esteemed political watchdog, because that is not an easy thing to do. Blue Zones has some consultants in from Portland this week, and they are meeting with the community to talk about what you would like done with Lindbergh Street. So we're all one community, so if any of you have something to say, I do have the schedule if anyone wants to talk to me about that. The County Superintendent of Schools is sponsoring the STEAM Expo on Friday, March 10th at 4:30 in the Manzanita Building at the fairgrounds. I would like to suggest, my New Year's resolution was to no longer listen to collect broadcasting, which has made my life a lot less frustrating. But I would like to suggest that either you or someone else nominate our hardworking men and women of the week, our road crews, because this can't possibly have been easy. And Calaveras County did that for their road crews last year, which I thought was awesome. And I want to thank the Sheriff's Office, who prevented a suicide from becoming successful and just made it an attempt last week. And we did have a young man who did take his own life not long ago. And I think we still ought to be concerned about our high suicide rate here. And then I was at the last board meeting when we talked about the Columbia Motel. And I found the conversation quite disturbing. And I was really disturbed by a pastor who thought reaching out to help the vulnerable in our communication was just wrong, and assuming that everyone was going to be a rapist, a murderer, a child molester, or whatever. And there was a lot of comments like that, which was very disappointing to see that that's what our community has become. And there were several people here that were advocates for the homeless community, and they just sat there. And I know it's hard to get up because some people here are quite hostile. And it's hard to get up and speak up and stand up for things you really believe in sometimes. But we need to stop being cowards. And I was really disappointed that the county chose to abandon everything so quickly without fighting for it, because at some point we're going to have to start with something. And that wasn't the most ideal place. There's no transit that goes out there. There's no services out there, but we would have had to do something. But most communities are looking at hospitals or schools or hotels. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on now to staff reports. So those staff members who have something to let the board and the public know about what they're doing, please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning, supervisors and CAO staff and county staff. I just want to come up to do a quick staff report. Yesterday, March 6, 2023, Tuolumne County Fire Department started staffing 2 additional fire engines in the county, 24/7, 365. That makes it 5 total for this county. Pretty big event happening yesterday with that. Yesterday, we also had 2 structure fires in the county. So having those 2 structure fires, one down here in Tuolumne City, one in Twain Harte, those engines didn't necessarily respond, but they were available for additional calls afterwards. So having those extra personnel, those extra staff is a big, big deal in this county. So I just wanted to come up and thank the Board of Supervisors, thank the CAO's office, thank the county staff for their support with fire protection and prevention, and continue with moving forward with this. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I'm here to update you on our efforts to correct the FCC's broadband map. In December and January, we had a campaign to involve the community that resulted in around 100 people responding to us, which resulted in 50 actual claims. In addition to that, we did an analysis comparing the FCC's map against our parcels and found another 680 locations that were missing from the map. All of that is good. It's a very short update, but that should help with our future funding. Thank you.
Thanks, Len. And here comes somebody who's still standing.
I am.
Welcome.
Good morning, supervisors and all our lovely friends, staff, and public. Dory Beats, the Office of Emergency Services Coordinator. I will hold some other current reports to our later agenda item, but I wanted to just remind both the board and the public of a few things. First and foremost, I would like to recognize the incredible work this community has done in this last week. And the amount of hours beyond normal work days, on the weekends, after hours, the incredible commitment by not only county staff, but our partners who came together to really help solve some problems as we work through the last week. So I'm going to list them because I think it's really important that we recognize them. And I do apologize if I left somebody out. So I've tried to include the incredible list. First and foremost, you heard already from our public works, roads crew supervisor, and that whole incredible department that has been out there busting their butts like they normally do. So they've gone beyond their normal jobs to really assist us as needed. To our sheriff's office, dispatch, we've gotten to know each other quite a lot this last week, and I cannot say how incredibly thankful we are to have such incredibly dedicated folks that are answering the call for everyone, not just us as staff, but for the community that's out there. Also, our deputies that are out there doing welfare checks to really support the efforts that we have in time of need. Also, our search and rescue teams. They are out at nighttime where everyone else is sleeping, searching for individuals and pulling them out of places in need. And we are incredibly thankful for the work that they do. That is a volunteer group under Tuolumne County Search and Rescue, and they have done some incredible work this last week. Obviously, to our fire personnel, all of our agencies, not just Tuolumne County Fire, CAL FIRE, but every one of the stations in Tuolumne County that has stepped up and supported us throughout. To our facilities maintenance group, oh my goodness. If you didn't notice, we're running a shelter at the same time that we are running a board meeting today. So hats off to that group for helping us get it all together. To my friends at Public Health, Behavioral Health, Social Services, our homeless coordinator, EMS staff, Health and Human Services, that all of those individuals that have rallied together and answered the call as needed. Obviously, to the OES staff that have been here helping as we activate the EOC, as we manage the shelter, as we take calls. Sometimes one day our call volume was about 30 or so folks just calling in to answer questions or ask questions and find resources. So I'm very thankful. Also to our library and rec staff, putting things on in brand new facilities and working with them has definitely been a work in progress, and we're excited about the opportunity. To our partners, TUD came through. They plowed for Medic 20 when we didn't have other arrangements or we couldn't get to it. They also came and plowed here at the Community Resiliency Center so that we can operate the shelter. They did that at night. To our partners at Twain Harte Community Service District, Twain Harte Fire, also supporting us. To Tuolumne Rancheria Fire that provided the de-icing so that first night we could make sure that folks that were coming here to the shelter didn't slip and fall out in the parking lot or the sidewalk. Also to tribal security that was assisting us with just checks along with sheriff's deputies throughout the time. To Groveland Community Service District that did the exactly same for us over at the shelter in Groveland. Incredible opportunity for them to step up for and help us when we needed. To our friends at Groveland CERTS who staffed our shelter and assisted with us. Obviously, to our Red Cross volunteers, they are here today. If you get a chance and an opportunity to say thankful, they are here 24/7 and are most incredible, welcoming, warm, amazing, compassionate individuals that dedicate to making sure that we provide service to individuals of need. To our partners at the ambulance, helping us figure out calls and getting folks to where they need to go. To the U.S. Forest Service in Stanislaus, who offered up side-by-sides when our search and rescues side-by-side broke down and we were trying to get parts to fix that and get up and running. To give someone a chance for providing travel and transportation. It's a whole slew and a huge village, and I'm sorry if I missed somebody, but incredible work that has been going on, unseen by many, including the public, about the work that behind the scenes that has to occur. Responding to emergencies is complicated and it often needs a lot of flexibility as we work through. We had a lot of staff, volunteer staff, our brand new Tuolumne County CERT members were also volunteering here after hours in the nighttime, which is, I will tell you, the hardest time to get volunteers is that 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. Who are trained to be able to handle the situations that may arise in the middle of the night. So I want to thank them for stepping up. They're brand new, and boy, they got a first look at some of the things that we can be doing in the future. So again, a huge, heartfelt, grateful gratitude, appreciation to everyone that stepped up the last week. Now, I want to prepare you for what is to come. Everyone knows we have another storm coming in. I want the board, the county staff, and the public to be ready. This storm will come in Thursday, and it's going to dump a lot of rain. Between Thursday and Saturday in the Sonora area, we can get 5 to 7.5 inches of rain on top of all the snow we just experienced. The snow level lines will be anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 feet. We are going to need to continue and prep, and we'll talk about that in another agenda item. But I want the public to be prepared. Now is the time when the sun is clear and you can get out and shovel those snow berms, because water will have no place to go. It will go to your house. It will start flooding areas, and we will have that localized flooding. So please take the time now to make sure you've stocked up, you have backup generation and power, or you have other alternative, because as we have found out, our resources are slim and we can only help so many individuals. So please take the opportunity time now to get prepared the next couple of days before the next storm cycle comes in. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
Dory,
Yes.
really quick, I wanted to ask a question just related to that. With the rain and the snow that we've been getting, I would assume the soil's pretty saturated. What do we expect from not just the volume of rain, but kind of the flood risk coming in for some of the areas that have previously had, say, downtown Sonora issues?
So just real quick, obviously, as an operational area, we are already talking about this since we started to see those patterns in our operational area, which includes all of the county staff that I mentioned, as well as all of our partners, are working together to make sure that we're doing all of that kind of pre-positioning of resources and checking. So we are ready for this, but it is the public impact that we can't get you ready. We need you to get ready so that we can worry about the public infrastructure side of it and the public services. But if we have a lot of community members who are not prepared and then request us to assist them, that drains from us doing what we need to do on the public infrastructure side.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, taking personal responsibility is key here. Thank you, Dory.
And Chair, I just want to point out that Dory did forget to thank somebody, and that's herself. I called her about 8:30 last night about a displaced individual in my district, and I asked her, where are you tonight? And she said, well, I'm at the EC, or I'm at the CRC. And so she was here, and then now she's here again this morning to do her day job.
Thanks for that. All right, we're going to go to the consent calendar now. And Tanya, will you please read the consent calendar?
Good morning. Item 1, approving the minutes of the February 21st, 2023 meeting. Item 2, approving a contract with Constant Associates, Inc. to update the Tuolumne County Emergency Operations Plan in the amount of $112,569.72 from previously budgeted and approved grant funds, and authorizing the county administrator officer to sign. Item 3, approving the resignation of Cynthia Hallman to the Tuolumne County Behavioral Health Advisory Board, and request the clerk of the board to send letters of appreciation and post a notice of vacancies for the open positions. Item 4, recognizing unanticipated revenue in the amount of $500,000 from the Local Agency Technology Assistance Grant, and increasing appropriations in the budget by the same amount, and requires a 4/5 vote. Item 5, approving an agreement for professional services for the Don't Trash Tuolumne campaign. Item 6, accepting the resignation of Pamela Orbaugh from the Tuolumne County First 5 Commission, and directing the clerk of the board to send a letter of appreciation and post a notice of vacancy. Item 7, approving a letter of support for the Columbia College Bachelor of Science degree program, and request the board chair to sign. Item 8, approving a license and cost reimbursement agreement with Yosemite Community College District to co-locate a county fire station with Columbia Fire Station 79 for an amount not to exceed $12,000 and a termination date of 2/28/24. The funds needed for this contract are currently contained in the fiscal year 22-23 adopted budget, allowing the county administrator to sign. Item 9, as the Air Pollution Control Board, consideration recognizing unanticipated revenue for the Air Pollution Control District budget for fiscal year 2022-2023 in the amount of $525,784, and increasing appropriations by the same amount, 4/5 approval required.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask the board if they have any item first that they want to pull. Anybody? Okay, and I assume there may be comments. I know Supervisor Campbell has some comments. Okay, it looks like it. So go ahead, Supervisor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to start by, on item 6, really thanking Pam Orbaugh for her contributions to the First 5 Commission. She's served our community in a variety of capacities, and so I just wanted to wish her the best in her new opportunities that she has, and thank her for her service. And then I just kind of wanted to highlight for the rest of the board, item 5, which is the Don't Trash Tuolumne campaign. This is part of a series of Clean California grants that our county received. Really have to give a huge shout out to GCSD and the Groveland community, as well as the Jamestown community for their efforts at bringing more millions of dollars in Clean California grants. And for our part, Tuolumne County, I think that the board memo laid out the plan pretty well, and we've done work with Green Dot in the past, and they've done really well for us. So I'm very excited to see this happening, and I know this is something Supervisor Goldenberg and I had worked on, and now Supervisor Brandon and I are working to kind of bring it into reality. So much more to come on Don't Trash Tuolumne efforts that we're going to see in our community. So really excited about it.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Brandon.
Skipping over. Right. I wanted to echo the same comments on Pamela Orbaugh as well. And I also wanted to say thank you to Cynthia Hallman. She's been on the Behavioral Health Advisory Board for at least the 2 years that I've been on there. So her resigning leaves a lot of experience lost there. She does a lot of work with Lantern of Light, and she'll definitely be missed. I wanted to do a special thanks to Columbia College. We have on here a couple of amazing items. One of them is what we've been able to do, is that the chief mentioned, being able to operate Station 79 and have a full service temporary contract with the college that's able to work out there. And it's not necessarily easy for them. They're doing an educational facility. This is, a professional staff station. Certainly stuff to work through, and I think they have. But between that and what they're doing to empower that next generation of experts that we will be graduating out of our county into the world on cooperative land stewardship, that's incredible. right? These are the people that will be implementing these policies, go work with the Forest Service, work locally in county government. We want them to get the Tuolumne County perspective. And I know that to support all of that as well, they're aggressively pursuing housing on campus as well for, I think, about 100 students. So thank you to Columbia College for being a really great partner and all of the county staff working with them to help make that happen. And then lastly, I just wanted to say too, we have created a few positions over the last couple of years. Most of them, I think, have been through state funds, grants, various programs. We have done a couple through the general fund, and one of them has been our broadband coordinator position. I think this board is united in saying that, you know, internet access is a utility. We need this in our county for our economic health. We need this for our safety. We need this just for, you know, everyday life, same as we need, you know, phones, we need electricity. And I wanted to give a shout out to Len, who's been fantastic to work with and doing an excellent job. This is just another example of being able to access this local technical assistance. And what was mentioned with what we requested from the community to provide input that fixes that data, that's where most counties are at. They all kind of put that out and they'd receive 50 or 100. We got 5, 6, 7 times, whatever it was, the error rate of other counties. And because of that, we were able to represent that to some of our leaders to say, you need to, for our entire area and not just us, give us the benefit of the doubt. This stuff's not correct. So Len, you've been doing a great job, and I just wanted to highlight that.
Great, thank you. Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yeah, just 2 brief comments. Want to tag on to Supervisor Campbell regarding item 5 on the Don't Trash Tuolumne. That's really important. Glad to see that work proceeding. And the other one that very important is item 8, which Supervisor Brandon just discussed, as far as the agreement, you know, to house an engine at Columbia College, and wow, at what a cost, $12,000. You know, that's fantastic that they stepped up to do that, and I just really appreciate them doing so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any members of the public have any comments on the consent calendar?
Thank you. I would like to talk on item number 5, and I hope they do a really good job, because there are parts of our community that look like a pigsty, and all the cigarette butts and stuff and the dog poop and everything I see everywhere is just disgusting, and we should take better care of our county. On item number 3, we need to do something on the vacancies of the Tuolumne County Behavioral Health Advisory Board, because there are legal requirements for where the members have to come from. And you have to have those who've been impacted by mental illness, either a consumer or a family member. And I think right now there's only one consumer and there are no family members. And NAMI used to supply a number of board positions, and they have none, nor do they usually come to any of the meetings. So we have a lot of behavioral health and mental health issues in our community, and we need people to show up and stand up and speak up, either for what's going on in your own life or your own family's life, or what's going on in our community. So I would like to encourage people who may fit these positions to look into their heart and come and try to make us a more loving place.
Thank you. All right, I don't see any more public comment, so at this point, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve the consent calendar.
Second.
Okay, we had a first by Supervisor Brandon and a second by Supervisor Campbell. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries 5-0. Okay, I do need to tell the public that this is an unusual case. At 10 a.m. this morning, we have a closed session, and we will have to have it here in this room because of this facility being used for a shelter. And this is the only other place, and it will be a televised meeting, not televised, what's the word I'm looking for? Teleconference, that's it. Yeah. So, and we're going to need some time to set up. So I think I'm just going to call it unless the proclamation, can you do that in 5 minutes? Okay, look, come on. Tanya, would you please read our proclamation number 10? We'll do that, and then we'll break and clear the room.
Thank you. Item 10, consideration of adopting Resolution 15-23, proclaiming March 2023 as National Social Work Month.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the board. Michelle Clark, Social Services Director. I come before your board this morning as we do each March to recognize, honor, and to celebrate the profession of social work. Social work is recognized nationwide as with an authentic theme to capture the essence of what social workers do for children, adults, elderly, families, and communities. This year's theme is Social Work Breaks Barriers. I cannot think of a better theme to celebrate this profession, considering the intense times of the incredibly controversial challenges facing our nation and our communities. When I think of the many complex issues creating barriers for communities, individuals, and families to thrive, social workers are often the professionals called upon to navigate, to motivate, and inspire change. Whether it be to support issues and improve outcomes related to homelessness, poverty, immigration and systemic racism, the fentanyl crisis and all other substance addiction, child abuse and neglect, elderly abuse, neglect and exploitation, the scammers, human trafficking and child sex trafficking, or inclement weather conditions as we have recently discovered. It seems now more than ever, social work and social workers are essential. They show up in social services, hospitals, immigration, prisons, and education systems and tribes. Social workers show up regardless of the controversy, regardless of the critics, regardless of the successes, sometimes being less than the failures, regardless of the pay, regardless of the barriers those they serve struggle to change, and in times of crisis. They show up because they believe that making a difference matters. They believe everyone is capable of change. They believe that with every change, a person, a family, has the opportunity to live their lives to the fullest. They believe in breaking cycles, and with every cycle that is broken, communities are healthier, they're stronger and more resilient for it. You know the quote, "You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it"? I recently read a quote, "Don't lead a horse to water, make it thirsty." And when I read this quote, it made me immediately think of social work. It's what social workers practice. It is difficult to force change upon anyone who may not be ready for it. However, finding what motivates people to want better, to engage them in their own process to get there, is the creative ways social workers break barriers every day. Social workers persevere. They are creative and adaptable. They are composed. They are resilient, and let's be honest, they are gritty. Your Tuolumne County Department of Social Services social work team are courageously breaking barriers for our community, and each day they show up for at-risk families by providing prevention and early intervention, by striving to strengthen families and keep them together, by mitigating poverty and supporting people to becoming self-sufficient to raise their families and thrive, by working alongside our many partners to conquer homelessness, by investigating heart-wrenching reports of child abuse and neglect, intervening to protect children when necessary, expertly interviewing children who are sexually and physically abused, and they reunify families. Tuolumne County social workers help heal trauma, assure quality, nurturing, trauma-informed homes, and help children find their forever homes when it cannot be with their parents. They investigate reports of elderly and dependent adult abuse, striving to protect this vulnerable population from exploitation, physical, emotional, financial, and sexual abuse, and safeguarding their independence. They are there for those who can no longer make decisions or understand their circumstances, who are gravely disabled, or who are battling cognitive challenges, and by helping those remain in their homes through in-home supportive services who may otherwise not be able to. The work being done by this team and the many other social workers is nothing short of heroism. So thank you for joining with me in celebrating Tuolumne County social workers, and for giving me the opportunity to recognize the critical, life-changing, community-changing, purposeful work being done. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Do we have any public comment on proclaiming March as a National Social Work Month? Indeed, you do break barriers. Yeah, thank you. Any comments from the board before I call for a motion?
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments, if I could, please. Number one, thank you for everything that, social services does. Many people, maybe even most, they really have no idea of all the things that this group of people do and all the people that they help. And I know I didn't, before coming on the board. And so I've gained a, really true appreciation of learning and knowing more. Just so many ways, and their pay is too low. We need to fix that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Did you have a public comment?
Yes.
You have to come up to the podium. Yeah. Sorry, I closed it too soon.
My name is Pablo Martinez. I'm taking it that the Columbia Hotel proposition is probably not going to happen. So what I did is I printed out 200 pages of every grant the state offers. The problem is that the cost in our state is 2.8 times minimum wage. That means even with all these great programs, if you can't keep families together and you can't keep them in a safe environment, it's not going to work. Talk about mental health, the stress, the long hours, the lack of being at home. The state of California invested $13 billion into all these programs. They produced 125,000 residencies at a cost of $10.4 million per residencies. I bought the land off Shaw's Flat Road. It has 6 apartments. The land is equipped to handle more, but I've tried to get in contact with Tuolumne County for the IGG grant, or IIG, which is the infrastructure grant. It is approximately $130,000 for the water line, $650,000 for the sewer. On the lot is 0.8 that I'm willing to use as affordable housing and veterans housing. Part of the loans that in the process that it is used for the infrastructure, it has to be done through the county. The county has to do the infrastructure grant because TUD will take over the pipeline. The grant is a 55-year loan for an individual or corporation, which I formed an LLC to apply for these loans. The infrastructure loan, if Tuolumne County did approve it, it is way exceeds the number. They talk about millions, not hundreds of thousands. Also, there is the multi-housing program that I'm going to apply for, but I need Tuolumne County to build the infrastructure. So Tuolumne County needs to put more infrastructure. For $1.2 million, what they were planning to pay for the Columbia Hotel, it'd be cost effective to put infrastructure and allow private entrepreneurs to go ahead and build housing. At the location I have, I could run anywhere from 24 to as high as 38 apartments. And I would divide that into 2 categories. One will be multi-housing program, 2-bedroom apartments, and the other one would be veterans housing. I have a very close friend that he is 75 years old, and I talked to him yesterday. He lives in a 1-bedroom up in Redding, California. He did 32 years in the military and DOD service. They take 55% of his check to live there. So he had to vacate all assets and is effectively worth nothing. Has to eat at a chow hall, doesn't get to pick his meals. And this is somebody that dedicated 32 years of his service. Now, it would be a lot easier
All right,
to go ahead.
thank you. Thank you. We do time, and so you're 3 minutes.
That's 3 minutes?
That's 3 minutes.
You should have told me go.
Pablo, wait around for a few minutes. I'll talk to you after.
All right.
All right. So where are we at here?
I have a
We're going to
comment.
have comments? Okay,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just really, I'll try to be as brief as possible. This is a subject that's, I hope you know how much I appreciate the work you do and the team of really talented social workers that we have in Tuolumne County. And, it's kind of it's well known as a thankless job. I think everybody is aware of that. But I just want you to know that this board thanks you, and that I think it's important to have things like this where we have a resolution, putting it in writing that this is an important resource, that it's something that's vital to continuing to keeping our community healthy and safe. I think that's significant. And so please convey to your staff and your team and all of the people that support social workers that you have our deepest thanks.
Go ahead. Supervisor Brandon.
Thank you. Echoing what was also said on the board there, but as talking about, a lot of people don't know all of the good work that happens. I would have been in that boat, even being elected and hearing about programs kind of in general. Having the opportunity to come in and talk to many of you and be able to hear, here's a life saved, and maybe there wasn't a resolution coming up for that, but that is not an irregular necessarily occurrence, going into a home to save a kid. And as mentioned, saving an elder from abuse. I think these are things that our community really prioritizes and things are important, and yet they maybe don't know that connection to the folks actually doing that work. And I agree that we need to look at the compensation issue in that. It's a hard job. The secondary trauma of having to live in that type of experience and hearing that over and over, it's difficult. But what you do is you help make people better. You help try to actually correct these issues and not just respond to them and get them back on their feet. And that's an incredibly beautiful thing, and we need it in Tuolumne County. So thank you for the work that you do. I'm really happy we have this on the agenda today.
And I just have a few comments. Most people know that I came back to Tuolumne County in the year 2000 as a social worker. And since I've become a board member, I have drawn some very distinct parallels between being a social worker and being a board member. First of all, having direct service, where you're working directly with the public, can be very rewarding as a social worker, especially when you have successes, and as a supervisor when you can actually help somebody. The other side of the coin is, and I'll excuse myself for swearing a little bit here, but you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. Because nobody knows the whole story of what the social worker is dealing with. Some of that information is private, and you can't disseminate that. So your work, what you do, is not well understood, and why you have to do what you do. And it's similar sometimes, once in a while, for board members when they have to deal with closed session items and they can't talk about it. The public is not invited into those sessions. So anyway, I just wanted to say, through the strangest thing, through my work as now a board member, I have reimagined the work that I did as a social worker and just have even more praise and credit for all that you do. Just wanted to say thank you.
Sorry, I just want to say thank you for all the kind words. I will get it back to them. I just don't think anyone could make it up the road this morning, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to entertain a motion.
I'll move to adopt Resolution 15-23 proclaiming March 2023 as National Social Worker Month.
I'll second.
Okay, it was motioned by Supervisor Campbell and seconded by Supervisor Goldenberg. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries 5-1. All right, with that, I think we're going to go into our closed session. Sarah, do we expect to report out? And do we have any kind of time element involved in this where we can let the public know at approximately? Do we have any idea?
No, I think maybe 30 minutes.
30 minutes? Okay, we'll shoot for that. All right, thank you.
Supervisor Half?
Yes.
We're going to have the clerk read the item and then ask for public comment.
That's right. So I will ask for public comment after Tanya reads the closed session item.
Thank you. 10 a.m. closed session, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, Government Code 54956.9, D2, and E1, one case.
All right, do we have any public comment on this closed session item? come on forward.
I don't know if you can answer it, but can you define what that means? I mean, my phone doesn't work in here, and I'm trying to look it up. What is it regarding?
It's a closed session litigation matter under the Brown Act, and that's why it's cited, which we're not authorized to say anything other than that at this time.
Okay, Karen.
All right, thank you. All right, we'll go into closed session now and ask for members to clear the room. Thank you. All right, welcome back. And we're ready to go to our 11 o'clock appointment. And Tanya, would you please read that item?
11 a.m. presentation by Caltrans Road User Charge Program Manager, Ms. Lauren Prohoda.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Supervisors. Thank you so much for having me here this morning in lovely Tuolumne County. My name is Lauren Prohoda, and I work for the California Department of Transportation, or Caltrans, and I head up something called the Road Charge Program, which I'm here today to share a little bit about the issue we're trying to address, what the state's been doing, and some opportunities for you to participate in research and education efforts. So, without further ado, I'm going to dive right in. So, as you may be aware, our transportation system in California is currently funded primarily by the gas tax. This is state highways, this is county roads, city roads, transit, basically the majority of the system that we rely on every day. And we've used the gas tax to fund the structure for over 100 years now. But as we look to the future, we're seeing some issues coming down the road that we need to start thinking about. And those issues play out in different ways. The first is just in our gas-powered fleet, we have more fuel-efficient vehicles, which is fantastic in so many ways. But if you're buying less gas to get where you need to go, then you're also paying less in gas taxes. Then, of course, there are an increasing number of vehicles that are not using gas at this point in time. So they are not necessarily contributing in a fair way, their fair share towards road maintenance. Thirdly, we have ongoing inflation. Now, this is not as much of an issue at the state level. When the state passed SB 1 in 2017, they did index the gas tax to inflation. However, there is also a federal gas tax, and that one has not been increased since the early 90s. So in terms of the federal contribution to our transportation system, that's an ongoing issue there. And as these three issues continue to grow, what we're seeing is a greater disparity in what individual Californians are contributing to the system. Those who maybe can't afford newer, more fuel-efficient vehicles, or maybe need less fuel-efficient vehicles because of their way of life and the region, the state they live in, or the issues they deal with, they're tending to pay more per mile than some of their other counterparts who may be able to afford newer vehicles or live in other areas. This tends to play out particularly in the urban and rural divide, where on average, rural drivers do drive those less fuel-efficient vehicles, so they are currently paying more on average than their urban counterparts. So what the state has been trying to do is look ahead and start thinking about an alternative way to collect funding to support our roads, to replace the gas tax. And what we've been looking at is something called a road charge, which is a per-mile fee that really is kind of a utility-based concept. It's a user-pays concept that switches from paying per how much gas you buy to how many number of miles you drive. That way, it doesn't matter what kind of car, what kind of fuel you're using. Everyone's paying the same to use the road. And the state's currently envisioning this as, again, a replacement for the gas tax. We're looking at one flat per mile rate for all passenger vehicles, again, bringing that fairness hopefully back into the tax structure. looking to just have this be revenue neutral. We're looking to stabilize the existing funding, not necessarily looking to increase it, though of course, ultimately that would be a debate that would need to happen in the state legislature. And there's not any behavior change aspects to it. We're not necessarily looking at changing how the money is spent. Again, this money is already being spent on critical transportation needs, and so we want to make sure that that money is there for those transportation needs into the future. So I just want to illustrate that kind of disparity that I touched on earlier. And these are just some examples of a range of vehicles that we have in California, ranging from very, very fuel efficient to not as fuel efficient. And you can see from this image that, for driving the same number of miles, you're having different people pay very different amounts for accessing the transportation system. And again, those that tend to live in more rural areas tend to be on that low efficiency side of things. Add that into the fact that they actually don't usually drive the average number of miles, right? They're driving above average miles because of the distances that rural drivers usually have to face. But if we shift to a road charge, you can see some of that evening out in terms of paying the same for the same number of miles. So everyone's contributing the same amount to use the road. So I just want to give a brief overview of how we're envisioning this system might work. What we see kind of on the backside, the operations side, is having a state agency that oversees some independent third-party account managers. Those private account managers could be anything really that has an account management-based business, something like Verizon, something like usage-based insurance companies, or things like that, that could be, adding this service into their existing business model. And they would handle that day-to-day interaction with the taxpayer. The advantages of this model include keeping administrative costs down and also help the system adapt into the future as new technologies roll out that we can't even envision today. Typically, the private sector is a little bit better at adapting to changes in technology than the state is, so this system can support that flexibility into the future. But what the taxpayer really experiences is the need to report the number of miles they've driven so that the tax can be determined and reported. And so we envision a range of options that people would have to choose from to report their mileage, ranging from very, very low-tech options to very high-tech options. And we really feel there's a number of important reasons that we need to have this range of options. One, just in terms of considering people's thoughts around privacy. In our society today, we constantly have to manage our data, and we're constantly making trade-offs in terms of privacy versus efficiency. Each of these options has different pluses and minuses, different range in terms of perceptions of privacy versus efficiency. And we want to make sure that individuals are making that decision for themselves, what works best for them and their lifestyle, and the government is not making it for them. There's also just some equity considerations in terms of not everyone has access necessarily to all the high-tech options for various reasons. And then, we just have a range of vehicles in our fleet. We will always have, the 1967 Mustang because it's epic coolness, but that does not have in-vehicle telematics, right? So we need to be able to absorb all that range of vehicles. So I just want to put this in context in terms of what's going on nationally. All states are facing this issue because all states have, a good chunk of their transportation revenue coming from a gas tax. So there are already 3 states that have active programs. You can see those in yellow. A number of states have done pilots, the ones in green on that map. And a number of other states are actively studying a road use charge as a potential replacement. In addition, in last year's federal transportation bill, Congress did include a national pilot for US DOT to explore whether it could serve as a replacement at the national level for the national gas tax as well. So there's a lot of momentum around this idea. You see that, it's all across the country. It's the coast, it's the Midwest, it's the red states, it's blue states. There's just a very practical appeal about this user pays approach that a lot of areas of the country are seeing makes a lot of sense. So what is California doing? We have already done a couple of pilots. Our first pilot was in 2017, which kind of tested the general feasibility of the idea for California. But it did have some recommendations come out of that for areas of future study. So, and this one of the key areas was we need to do more research on the impact to rural drivers. We need to understand how this system might interact in their day-to-day. So we are launching a pilot this month that is focused solely on rural and tribal drivers, getting people to experience it, live with it, see what you like, see what you don't like, give us your input. Because there are unique needs in rural and tribal communities that we need to make sure that we understand and that we can adapt for. On the technical side of this project, we are testing one of the high-tech reporting options through this particular pilot, one that does have, use GPS location data because we're trying to see if there are advantages when we have that level of detail, when we can say, you're driving on a public road right now. So, that's a public road, so you should be taxed on that. Right now, you're driving on a private road, so you should not be taxed on that because no public money goes to the maintenance of that road. Or maybe we're on tribal land specifically, and that's valuable information to know as well. So we want to explore whether this level of detail brings value in rural areas. It may not. We don't know. That's why we're testing it out. We want to try it and see and get everyone's opinion. So we are recruiting right now for people to sign up and participate in this pilot. We'll be sending out invitations for those who are selected just in the next coming weeks. As I said, we're launching this month. The link right there is on the screen where you can sign up. We are offering incentives of up to $250 per person to participate in this pilot. And all participation entails is signing up. You'll be sent a plug-in device that goes into the OBD2 port of your vehicle. Then you just need to drive around like you usually would for 6 months. We'll be sending you some simulated invoices to take a look at, and then you'll take a couple of surveys, and that's all it is. We're also just pursuing opportunities to come to communities and just talk about this. Community group meetings, government meetings, bringing the conversation here locally so that we can, really get that input, ideas, concerns, all of that stuff. So that's what I wanted to share with you today. I did receive a couple of questions that I will be happy to answer as well, but I figure you guys want to ask some questions first. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sure we all have questions. And on the top of my mind is, okay, you have this road charge system structure, this particular, can you bring this slide up for everybody to see? You do a good job of giving a suggested route for how this could possibly happen, but you only bring it to the state level and you don't share how this will be allocated to the counties.
Right.
And that's number one. I have another question after this.
So what my program area is responsible for is really focusing on the incoming side of revenue and trying to figure out this mechanism. The outgoing side of revenue currently is quite set in statute. There are existing formulas set in statute that, the legislature would have to decide whether they wanted to change those as part of this if they chose to pass the system change. So again, we're trying to stabilize existing funding, so it's not necessarily looking to change how it's spent, but again, that is always a point of debate in the legislature when something like this goes through.
Okay. I have a little bit of a problem with this because it's very state-centric. Yeah, let's make sure that the state gets all of this money, but we're stuck with how is it going to be allocated, just like we are with SB1 money, and it's not necessarily allocated, in my mind, currently very well. we end up not getting very much money for our roads based upon the gas tax sold here. Well, the same problem could occur with the miles traveled. Are you going to be paying attention to the tourists that come into and use our roads, and how does that work? Because I didn't see that in here, so if you can explain that, please.
Right. So, you know, the possibility exists with road charge for those who wish to choose some of the more higher tech options that include location. There's pluses and minuses to that. Some people like to know and have all that level of detail. Some people may travel, you know, out of state and want to have different rates depending on where they're driving in which state. You know, if we sanitize that data and we have better road use data, like where the miles are actually being driven, that could potentially inform spending. Now, again, I'm not taking a position on that. I'm just talking about the possibilities, right? So in terms of what Caltrans is doing right now, again, our focus is really trying to explore how this would work on the incoming side. And again, the potential exists there to have that legislative debate on how it would be spent. I mean, working with organizations like CSAC and things like that who could have that debate. And as the legislature starts to think about this, that would probably be the best approach. I would say that it's not necessarily, you know, we don't think about it as state-centric because, again, this funding is going for everyone. But again, there are some established funding formulas in statute. Statute can always be changed by the legislature. So this could be, you know, an opportunity for you to consider to have a mechanism to advocate for those changes.
So you had all these different suggestions for how the miles might be tabulated. Is it going to be up to the consumer to choose?
Absolutely. We want to give people control over what data that they even choose to provide. So, for example, you know, having a third-party odometer read, envision something like a smog check kind of situation where you go in and you have someone certified, just read your odometer and report that and you're done. Versus, you know, we have vehicles coming off the line today that have in-vehicle telematics that are constantly reporting all sorts of data just automatically without the driver having to worry about it. Some people appreciate that. Again, we want to make sure that the individual can make that choice about what they're comfortable with and that the state's not making it for them. So that's why we want to have all these options.
And I'm not for Big Brother paying attention like probably a lot of people are, but if people don't choose that highest option, the rural counties will lose. They will lose. I'm going to stop right there because I'm monopolizing the conversation and want to go to...
And thank you, first off, for coming to explain a little bit about this. And I think there is some potential here. And I'll just kind of carry on with some of Supervisor Half's comments. She really hit the nail on the head with the key issue that we're worried about here in Tuolumne County. I'll use as an example Big Hill Road. It's a road that's in my district and in Supervisor Goldenberg's districts 1 and 2. It's about 7 miles long. It serves relatively few people, but it's in a terrible state of repair, and we have few prospects of being able to repair it. And I'm just naming one road. I'm sure every other board member here could name several that meet a similar kind of issue. And where we're disadvantaged is that, you know, we had 3.6 million visitors to Yosemite National Park. We have, you know, hundreds of thousands, upward to 1 million visitors up the 108 corridor. And then we have Highway 49 that travels through downtown Sonora. And so there's a high amount of traffic in and out of the county, but our population is 54,000. So we do not have the tax base to maintain the road network as it is. And it's gotten, and since SB1 and the way gas taxes and other types of vehicle taxes have been collected has changed over time, our roads have gotten worse and worse as the way those monies have been allocated has changed. So there's a direct correlation with that. So that, I think, that's for some context so you can kind of understand the fear and the concern. For rural counties like ours that have a low average population, but high number of total road miles that we maintain. We have about 610 miles of county maintained roads for a relatively small population. So all that is just to kind of illustrate the struggle and why we're concerned with a model that places emphasis on the total vehicle miles traveled of residents rather than total miles traveled on the county road network.
Right. So it's definitely an issue, and I know that a lot of rural counties, particularly ones that are trying to focus on tourism, have this concern because the existing funding formulas do not consider visitor miles. You're right. So again, the system that we're developing on the collection side has potential to potentially better inform the usage, not necessarily perfectly informed, but better than we have now, that could potentially support a broader discussion on how those funding formulas should be changed. And again, that could be part of a bill that the legislature might consider when they put this through or not. That's a little bit above my pay scale, but I think that those are all things that you guys want to be thinking about, and it's great feedback for us. What are the opportunities? When change happens, there are opportunities, right? So it's something to be thinking about.
Supervisor Goldenberg.
Hi, thanks for your presentation. Interesting thoughts here on how this could move forward. It's complex, right? How to figure out how to manage it, how to do it fairly across the board, and also deal with things like Supervisor Campbell just mentioned. That we get a lot of visitors, coming up here. And so how do those dollars perhaps, I don't know, some formula thing, to flow to the counties to make it more equitable. I did, see one thing on your presentation, the 1 per mile rate for all passenger vehicles. What about commercial vehicles? I mean, they're heavy vehicles. They're taking a, very hard wear and tear on our road systems, and how does that get dealt with?
Excellent question. So I do anticipate that the rate would look different for commercial vehicles because you have that weight factor. So when we think about weight and its relationship to pavement, that relationship is not linear, it's exponential. So what that means at the lower weight ranges, there's not that much of a difference in terms of the impact. And the way that plays out is basically vehicles that are 10,000 pounds and below, which is basically passenger vehicles, right? So it's when you get into the big trucks, 26,000 pounds, 55, 80,000 pounds, that's where you start to see that spike in impact. So, we are working with the California Trucking Association, trying to, understand how this would live in their day, just as much as we're trying to understand how it lives in the day of a rural driver, to see what would be most appropriate. But keep in mind that commercial vehicles also already pay weight fees in addition to the gas taxes because of that issue. So, we got to balance all of that. And again, what we're trying to do is keep everyone whole, being, kind of keeping the same amount coming in, kind of keeping the same amount being paid, while bringing, weighing everyone's needs. So we are definitely thinking about that on the commercial vehicle front, and that's how we've been thinking about weight as a factor as well.
Okay, and you're correct. Thanks for the, pointing out the weight fees, that are being paid. The other one was, just a thought on your rental vehicles, which there's, a lot of tourists that come into areas, and so that could be handled on, having to deal with the individual companies who's renting those vehicles and make sure they have devices and pay their fair share. It may not come back to our county, but it comes back into the system as a whole.
Yeah, definitely. We can look at specifics regarding fleets. I know the state of Hawaii has actually been doing a lot of research on rental fleets, as you can imagine. They have a couple of rental cars there.
Yeah.
So, we're working with a lot of different states through these issues, because we all kind of are learning together and making sure we explore the impacts to different groups and both, in terms of the collection, but also the outgoing. So,
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, Supervisor Kirk.
Lauren, right?
Yes.
Cool. Lauren, thanks for being here. And if you're feeling any frustration from the board or from myself, it's not you, right? You're just the messenger, and we're just relaying the information. But you did ask for, thoughts, ideas. So I just wrote down a couple. I think it's important that you keep it lots of options, like you said, the odometer reading. You're gonna have a lot of folks, not just in rural areas, but just in general, who don't want Big Brother tracking them. So that's important to me. One thing you said, though, is that one of the things that, California's trying to address is the stabilize existing funding. I just want you to know the existing funding doesn't need to be stabilized. It needs to be completely overhauled and fixed, because we have a 28% PCI index here in Tuolumne County. We have the worst roads in the state of California. And if you look at the entire rural communities, we're all in the same boat. So the state's building trains to nowhere, where we got money going to all sorts of social programs. Like, it's so much bleeding, and yet we can't take care of basic infrastructure. We live in a first world economy with third world roads. You drove up here, 108 Tuolumne Road. 108, I don't understand. They pave that thing like every 2 or 3 years. The road's beautiful. I'm not concerned about people driving to Yosemite and us not getting the funding. I'm worried about people driving to Yosemite and us not getting the funding, not on 120 or 108, but getting the funding for our local roads for the people who live here who are trying to get onto those roads. You drive up Tuolumne Road, that road's maintained because we have an agreement with Black Oak Casino. So you drive here and you have no idea what we're dealing with. But if I took you on a little drive on a lunch break somewhere else, then you'd be like, oh crap, I understand why Tuolumne County's worst roads. And us as supervisors, we get flack, and it's been like this for years, because everyone's just throw more money at it. $108,972,000 just to do rehab projects to bring us up to 91% PCI. $108 million. I can't pass a tax that's going to bring in $3 or $4 million. That's going to do nothing, right? So back to the statement of big problem, stabilize existing funding. The existing funding doesn't work.
Right.
That's like, if there's one thing I would want you to go back to Caltrans, and believe me, we've met with Department of Finance, we've met with people up in Sacramento. There needs to be a completely different mindset and shifting of thinking when it comes to basic infrastructure. It's non-existent up here. One other thing you could do that could help, that maybe you help this formula, is a public contract code. How much money it costs for us to actually get work done kills us. We can only do a half a mile worth of work, and then we got to pull the plug because now we're going over budget on things. So again, I'm sorry if I sound frustrated. I mean, literally, when we ran for office, the number one gripe is roads. And it's the one thing that we really can't deliver a lot on, because the problem has gotten so astronomical the last 3, 4, 5 decades. Our board right here has put more money towards roads than any board in history. And guess what? People show up at every board meeting, they scream at us, say we're doing a horrible job. And I'm not going to be here forever. Eventually, I'll be right back in my seat in the community, right? But the problem's not going away unless there's a major legislative government overhaul as far as this issue goes. So it's like right up there with the number one thing that we're trying to deal with. So if you could go back and relay that the last system didn't work, I'm telling you right now, you're going to have a job forever, because this system's not going to work. Okay? Unless there's a complete shift in the way we treat our basic infrastructure in roads. So that's what I wanted to leave you with.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you. And I agree with Supervisor Kirk on almost all those points. We, I think, sound frustrated because we are frustrated, right? What I'd encourage taking back, and thank you for being here, is we are, in a bad way, a model county for that, right? We do have the worst roads, and it's not like a close worst. I think we're a full 5 pavement condition points behind second place, right? We're talking about a system that was built on timber sale receipts and an environment that just doesn't exist anymore. And we, for a population of about 55,000, have $200 to $400 million in road maintenance to bring it up to 65 to 85 PCI if we fixed it right today, if we just had that money, right? So we're very sensitive to, I think, any changes. And I know that, when the gas tax was proposed in the state, it was to fix roads. It's not meant to be for, I'd say, as it was sold to voters, looking at the kind of, we have a $9 million overpass or on-ramp that went up in East Sonora. $9 million is almost as much as we got entirely from the American Recovery Plan, right? And we see a lot of those types of projects, and it's very frustrating because that's more than we've been able in the 2 years to put into roads in what has been a historic period of investment. So I know 20 million gallons or 25 million gallons or so is about how much we sell within Tuolumne County of gasoline. About 54 cents per gallon or so of gas tax, right? We're talking anywhere from probably 9 to 13 million. And I'm just kind of, this is my napkin math with it. We have funding we're contributing to that system because we have a lot of people, as my colleagues have mentioned, coming through. The concern I have is I want to take a hypothetical and maybe push on this a little bit. So let's say somebody, they live in Monterey. They want to come up to, our beautiful county, go visit Yosemite. They choose us because, definitely choose us over Mariposa to drive up there through it. And they choose to use the drive time permits, the mileage permits, or the odometer checks to be able to do that, either because of privacy reasons or technologically they might not have the right signal up here. Maybe it's a challenge in the hills, right? They're using a gas or an electric vehicle. I'm not sure if that matters. And I believe they go through 5 counties to get up to here. So how would we be able to collect on that if they did any of those checks within Monterey for a month permit or a certain amount of mileage to prove that they were in Tuolumne County at all?
Right. You wouldn't.
Okay.
And these are the trade-offs that we have to try to manage, right, in a statewide system.
I got to say, it's not a trade-off at all. That is absolutely devastating to us.
Well,
because we are losing millions of trips potentially, and a lot of people very likely will not be using any older cars without the GPS system, Wi-Fi coverage for smartphones. Almost everybody visiting here would have to use one of the low technology options, which means all of those trips we would not be getting credit for. And they don't just go to Yosemite. Our goal is how do we get them onto our local streets and go spend it at a business.
Right. When I talk about trade-offs, I talk about earlier comments of privacy is important to me, and I don't want Big Brother, and I don't want those kind of things. So say we set in place a system that only uses all of that tracking technology. Statewide, you have no option. I mean, how is that going to go? There's a lot of people who won't like that. So, we have to balance those different needs and try and consider, but this is an excellent point you raise.
May I interrupt on that to say that there are trade-offs when you're looking at it from a state perspective as to the data you're getting and how it can be tracked. To us, we are the trade-off, right? In that system, if they choose any of those, which they will probably have to more likely than not, it will devastate the amount of money we're able to generate from that. And so that, from the state, I can see why you're having to look at different technologies, and some have advantages and disadvantages. For us, one of these completely destroys what otherwise is a fairly accountable system of you run out of gas, you stop in, you do it. I agree we need to have something for electric vehicles and chargers, but maybe it's more appropriate to have it within charging stations or something with that. I wanted to say that whenever the state comes in and says this is a partnership, it normally means they want us to pay for something, right? So one of the challenges when we look at and we fought very hard for Prop 1A and Prop 68 and trying to protect our local revenues. Gas tax is something that is established. It could go up to where we want it to be. It could also be more state centralized, and this is very centralized. I wanted to put forward what I think CSAC has adopted within our transportation sections on roads, has been looking at new funding for some of the lowest PCI roads in the state that represent the most diverse communities, the lowest income communities, that this could be an opportunity to actually address some of these historic grievances that, I know I'm poking holes at your plan. What we're doing right now is not working very well for us, right? So we could use this as a vehicle for that type of change. I have other stuff. I just wanted to basically do a couple highlights. One concern I have is system security. Call of Duty can't keep out hackers, right? So to say that the smartphones or anything like that would be resistant to that is very concerning. I think very easy to see an app developed in the Bay right, that somebody puts on their phone and it just hides their mileage. I also wanted to mention that the odometer charges and some of these seem like they might be done on an annual basis, maybe with a vehicle license fee, I don't know. Those one-time amounts, if somebody couldn't pay it, are they then not able to drive to work? One-time payments like that are very difficult as part of the manageable gasoline amount. And then we have a huge amount of federal lands, and we're kind of up there, but Inyo County is what, 98%? So if they're driving on federal lands, you mentioned public-private, right? Mm-hmm. Does the federal government get that funding, or does that still generate funding on federal roads that they technically maintain that goes to the state and local jurisdictions? So things to keep in mind, maybe.
I don't anticipate the state would give the feds any money.
Yeah.
But just in terms of your excellent point on those annual charges, that's very true. Some people can't handle that in their budget. And so that's another place where we envision having options where you could do it annually if you like. Some people like to budget annually, but you could also potentially do it quarterly, monthly, because again, breaking that down into more manageable pieces is important.
And I did have one last one, but I only want to say it because it's a good one. I lived in the Bay for about 3 years, right? It took forever to get anywhere. It's one of the reasons I hated living down there. But it was only a few miles away, right? On paper, I would not be traveling very far by mileage, which means I wouldn't be paying very much. And when you look at an area like this with 8 times as many roads, we're not sitting in congestion as much, but we are traveling more distance. Mm-hmm. That presents a real issue when you're not talking about gas mileage. You think you take a taxi, right? They don't just charge you for the miles you go, they charge you for the time with it. So in an urban area where somebody within a mile might never go more than a mile, but it might take them 20 minutes to do that, in that 20 minutes up here, we might go 10, That's something I think to be considerate of. It seems like congested areas would be getting a much better advantage out of this, comparatively than it would be for rural areas that aren't. It seems like it would be incentivizing congestion that would reduce the kind of amount people would have to pay in some way. It's similar to maybe the VMT and level of service, that areas with lower level of service actually would have less paying into the system than areas with higher level of service but more vehicle miles to travel. So it's just a concern to me. Anyway, thank you, Lauren.
Point. Thank you very much.
All right, we're going to go to the public comment, and just want to remind us all to be respectful. This is a state person coming to explain this program to us. Thank you.
So I'm glad you all seem against this program. That's very good. But I think you shouldn't have allowed this item to be on the agenda at all, especially since this is really going to hurt Tuolumne County, and I don't think you should even allow this pilot program to take place in our county. Number one, as Supervisor Brendan just said, one thing that I've been seeing is the people in the city, they're going to pay way less because they don't have to travel nearly as far. So they're going to have it pretty high for travel because most of the people live in the city, so that's going to be their tax base. So it's going to be almost unable to travel in Tuolumne County at all for rural people because they're going to be having to charge so much per mile. And it takes, quite a few miles to get to Walmart or basic services in this county. So yeah, this is a very bad idea, and I think this is one of the first steps for an outdoor prison. And the reason why I say that is because this is completely in line with the social credit system. We're going to tax travel, but we're not going to tax a commodity. So it's basically taxing your right to travel versus a commodity like gasoline. So that's a really important thing to realize, is that big of a switch will be very detrimental. That will mean that they're going to have the ability, to tax travel, just moving around, which should be an inherent right, and you shouldn't be taxed for movement compared to a commodity. So I think this definitely needs to be rejected. I think you guys will, but I think you shouldn't allow the pilot program here at all. And just do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
Thanks for coming up here and doing this, and the great responses to my emails. You guys have covered most of my questions in advance, so that's really great. So rather than going over the same or similar questions, I think we've got some of the answers, and maybe there are more coming. I'm just want to say that the situation's evolving, and we need to be attentive to that. And there are lots of issues that we have existing that I think that we can probably address, particularly with the additional data that might be available. Question is, how do we get the data? How deep does that go? And can we make it simpler for everyone involved? I've got some ideas I'll share with you offline about how we might be able to do that. But I want to encourage the participation. I think addressing this head on is important, and we should be involved in the conversation. And I appreciate the fact that that's what this program's about, is trying to engage us in a meaningful way. So I think that's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
I appreciate the comments from the board. I'm glad to hear that you're thinking this out very well. I just wanted to ask, and I don't know if you can answer this or not, but tribal lands have a government-to-government relationship with the state. How is that going to work where you are able to tax, Native people? I mean, I just don't understand that in particular. Thank you.
Excuse me, just for your benefit and for anybody else's benefit, you do address us and then we ask.
Yeah, I just glanced at her. I
just wanted to make sure everybody knew. Thank you. And go ahead.
Thank you. So there are unique needs regarding tribal situations, and that's part of the reason why we want to have tribal members as part of this pilot, to try and explore some of those things and explore the nuances of that government-to-government relationship. Looking at, okay, what's in place now in terms of, do tribes, are they required to register in California or not? That's a consideration. Some of the feedback that I've gotten from tribes is I should, not, this is my land, I should not be charged for driving anywhere. All valid opinions, and we need to explore that. There's potential opportunities here for, again, increased data for tribes. Tribes can have a lot of difficulty understanding the use of their roads, and that can affect their ability to apply for state and federal grants sometimes. There's also unique considerations around sacred sites and protecting the confidentiality of that. So we want to be exploring all of those issues. There are issues that I know I haven't thought of because, it's not my way of life. And so I need folks to inform me about how this is working in your day-to-day. This is not a done deal. It's in process. And so that's why we're coming to you now to hear these things, saying, these are things you should be thinking about, so that we can take that back, bringing it together with all the other people that we're talking to about, these are things you should be thinking about, and try to work that out. It's a big change. We've relied on the gas tax for 100 years. So change there's a lot of things that have to be worked through. But we do have to do something, because the gas tax, maybe even as bad as it's viewed now, it's going to get worse, right? So we're trying to get on top of it and think of something. So I really appreciate everyone's time and thoughts. It's very helpful. We want to make sure, I grew up in a rural area of the state, in North State and Butte County, and so it's been very critical for me to make sure that the rural voice is at the table, because I know it can often feel that Sacramento doesn't pay attention. So that's why I'm trying to be out here and trying to get people's opinions, love or hate. I mean, if you hate it, it's just as important for me to hear it as if you love it. So thank you again for this time and all of your very honest comments. It's very helpful.
Looks like we have another person from the public coming forward.
Well, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming up. Were you planning to do this presentation to the TCTC also? Is that scheduled?
I had asked for her to come to this. Yeah.
Because it's too bad Darren's not here. So I think we should participate, and I would encourage at least for us to think about it, because if we're not at the table and we refuse to participate, then we have no say-so. But I want to thank you all for some of your comments, because I can remember, and I think this was before SB1, Darren Grossi was talking about that Tuolumne County had paid in $55 million, like to gas taxes. And at one point, the counties kind of got back their share to spend on their roads. But out of 55 million, we only got 8 million back. So that meant nothing. Right. And then I certainly didn't want to spend $9 million on an overpass road or $20 million to bypass Greenlee Way and Greenlee Road and some of those other things, because for a mile and a half or less, no thank you. My concern is when we've had to, I don't know if this gets changed too, but when we end up competing for grant money, we're just a little tiny county, and we only have like 49,000 people if you minus the prison population. But we were competing for grants against like Santa Cruz and, Ventura and more urbanized areas kind of outside the big city. So we never got squat. So, we've had a really difficult time here. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the audience? Okay, I will bring it back to the board then for final comments. Supervisor Brandon, since you went last.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to leave you with this. I was very happy to hear that you said working with CSAC, work with RCRC, talk to Supervisor Griffiths and Inyo. I think he would bring up many of the similar points. I would agree with the comment that if this is happening, I'd rather us be at the table discussing it. But the point about the Monterey thing, because that's not an exception, we have to have an answer to that. And the answer has to be not there's trade-offs, because that will be most of the use cases up here. And even with declining gasoline tax revenue, more people using electric vehicles, and we are a ZEV regional leader. We are trying to be able to adapt to this and plan for this. Even with those declines, this is worse as that's set up, because there's no guarantee that we wouldn't, year one, day one, take a massive hit in our funding that has already been very difficult. So if we can ever be helpful in providing more useful data from kind of a federal lands, rural county with really bad roads, I think we'd love to be in those conversations, but that's something that's got to have an answer for resort communities like ourselves.
Supervisor Kirk.
I was just thinking, and this is just food for thought, back to the lots of people visiting the 108 corridor, 120 corridor. If you can't track individuals, well, we have a pretty good idea of how many visit, 3, 4, 5 million. Maybe formulas could be created to just say, these communities receive X amount of tourists, therefore there's a formula in place, assuming road mileage. So, but when we are done commenting, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are, just kind of summarizing what you've heard us say. So that's for when we're all done now.
Thank you. Supervisor Goldenberg.
Yeah, I really didn't have anything further other than listening to Supervisor Kirk's comment. I think that that's a possibility, is to figure out a formula based on the visitors going into Yosemite and other areas here. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you very much for coming, Lauren. I think you've got an earful, which I hope I hope it's been informative. But just so you're aware, and I think others have brought this up, we're available and would love to work with you and stay in communication about how this can be crafted in a way that will at least not disadvantage rural communities, but hopefully, like I said before, our experience in the past has been every time there's been a major change to the way road dollars are allocated, our funding has decreased. So that's where I think a lot of the hesitancy is coming from that you're seeing here. So that being said, we'll hope we can keep the lines of communication going, and appreciate your time coming to talk to our community.
Yes, and I want to apologize for coming on so strong, because I invited you. Basically, I heard about this program at RCRC. I'm the county delegate to RCRC, and I wanted the public to be aware of this is going on, because we don't want to, be blindsided, and we want to be part of the solution to making it work. And you've heard all the reasons why it's not working for us now. So I do have one possible suggestion. It's just a formulation of an idea. Maybe the state takes into account the number of miles driven in the whole state, and then works out a formula so that the number of miles of roads in each county is compensated for that. And I think under a plan like that, rural counties would do much better than we've been given right now. So I'm looking for something like that would actually be a formula that would account for repair and maintenance within our county. I do have a question for you. Ultimately, who makes this decision? With all the stuff that's coming before you and we're talking about, who's going to make this decision?
Right. So this is a change in taxes, a change in our tax structure. So it needs to go through the legislature. It will likely require a 2/3 vote. Given that gas taxes are currently protected under Article 19 of the state constitution, I would envision that there would likely, in any sort of package that went through, be a constitutional amendment to also lock in road charges for transportation purposes, just as the gas tax is now, so that it's not diverted to social services, those kind of things. So that would also, that has to be passed through the legislature, and then a constitutional amendment goes to the vote of the public. So there's a lot more potential public debate to happen. In terms of our timeline, the research that we're trying to achieve, we're hoping to wrap that up towards the end of 2024. So what happens after that, I could not speak to, because the legislature chooses to do what they do. But that's kind of the general process that it would have to go through.
Okay, and I just want our board to be aware that this should be on our radar as far as our legislative platform. It deals with roads, so and that those of us who are involved with NACO, CSAC, and RCRC will really need to be involved legislatively so that our needs as a rural county get met. And I don't think there was anything in this, it was a presentation only, right? Okay. So thank you so much for coming and sharing what you know so far.
Right, my pleasure. And there was a request to me to summarize what I heard. I heard a lot of passion, which I appreciate, a lot of care for your community and serving them well. And so I'm always glad to hear that feedback. I don't care if I get an earful. That's exactly what I want. I understand the history in terms of funding and the reasons for lack of trust. They are there. So I would say that what I heard mostly is in terms of the funding formulas need to be reexamined to include actual miles traveled, not maybe downplay population, which is obviously a key factor right now. So I can definitely take that back and how to balance that. At the same time, I still heard privacy, and our constituents want those privacy options. So, how we balance the data for privacy and maybe the funding formulas, that will be an important area to explore. But overall, I heard a lot of passionate people who care and who want to be at the table, and that's what we want. We want this to be ongoing, so we really appreciate that.
All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with that, I think we'll break for lunch. And we'll be back for our 1:30 appointment at 1:30. Thank you. We're back in business here. Clerk of the Board, would you please read our 1:30 appointment?
Thank you. 1:30 p.m. Public hearing to consider T5 Ranches, Inc., Williamson Act Contract WA 22-001 to rescind existing Williamson Act Contract WA 12-002 and execute a new Williamson Act contract on the 872-plus acre site to amend and approve the agricultural management plan to include wood processing facility pursuant to Tuolumne County Resolution 106.04, notice of exemption pursuant to Section 15317 of the state CEQA guidelines.
All right, and I hereby open up the public hearing. And go ahead with your presentation, please.
Hi, I'm Natalie Rizzi, Senior Planner, and the item is Williamson Act Contract WA22-001, and the applicant is T5 Ranches. The project consists of Williamson Act Contract WA22-001 to rescind existing contract WA12-002 and execute a new Williamson Act contract on the 872-acre site to amend and approve the agricultural management plan to include the wood processing facility. The revised management plan would include a 17-acre portion of APN 063070086 to be utilized as a wood processing facility as a compatible agricultural use under Rule 8B of Resolution 10604. A new contract must be executed in order to revise the management plan. Conditional use permit CUP 22-003 and the mitigated negative declaration for CUP 22-003 to allow for the wood processing facility was approved by the Community Development Department Director on January 26, 2023. Since the wood processing facility was determined to be a compatible use under Rule 8B of Resolution 10604, the Board of Supervisors is not required to act on conditional use permit application. Therefore, your board is only considering and deciding on WA 22-001 regarding the proposed modification to the Williamson Act contract. The site consists of 8 parcels located at 5400 O'Burns Ferry Road. The parcels are zoned exclusive agricultural 37-acre minimum agricultural preserve combining and contain the agricultural general plan land use designation. They are currently within a Williamson Act land conservation contract for dryland grazing. The amended agricultural management plan would revise a 17-acre portion of APN 063070086 from a dryland grazing agricultural use to a wood processing use. Property owners within 1,000 feet of the site and other interested stakeholders were notified on May 20th, 2022. No adjoining property owners responded. CSIRC provided comments and indicated that they do not have concerns associated with the Williamson Act modification action. No other comments received regarded the Williamson Act contract. Comments were received regarding the development of the biomass facility, but contract revisions were not mentioned in the comments. Therefore, these comments were not included in your board packet. Resolution 10604 contains Tuolumne County's rules and regulations for enforcing the provisions of the Williamson Act. Each contract must be reviewed for consistency with Resolution 10604. Staff has determined that the proposed contract is consistent with Resolution 10604. Consistency with specific rules has been demonstrated in the agenda report. A new contract, WA 22-001, is required to amend the agricultural management plan. The contract was reviewed by the Agricultural Advisory Committee and is before your board for a final decision. Because there is no zone change component, the contract is not required to be reviewed by the Planning Commission. Rule 8B of Resolution 10604 includes uses which are considered compatible agricultural uses. These uses are subject to a recommendation by the Agricultural Advisory Committee and a decision by the Board of Supervisors. Processing of agricultural products not primarily grown on the property is listed as a compatible use. The Government Code also provides provisions for compatible uses. The remaining 855 acres of the site would be utilized as dryland grazing, which is the existing agricultural use. The modification of 17 acres from existing dryland grazing to the wood processing facility represents 1.9% of the total contracted land. This conversion would not substantially impact the existing agricultural use of the site. There would be no change in the total area under Williamson Act contract. The proposed wood facility may be found to be a compatible use as it entails the processing of wood and timber products not grown on the property. The Agricultural Advisory Committee recommended approval of the contract and recommended the processing facility be a compatible use under Rule 8B of Resolution 10604. The Agricultural Advisory Committee is the recommending body for Williamson Act contracts. This contract amended was considered by the Agricultural Advisory Committee at its meeting on July 21st, 2022. The committee unanimously recommended approval of the project with the vote of 3-0 with 2 commissioners absent. The committee recommended that the wood processing facility be a compatible use under Rule 8B of Resolution 10604. No questions or concerns were addressed by the committee. The Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors is the deciding body for Williamson Act applications and compatible use determinations. Your board may either approve the project, deny the project, or send the project back to staff for further review. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you for that presentation. So I don't see that we have the applicant here because it's the time for the applicant to also have her say. And so we'll move on then to public comment. Is there any public comment on this project? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. And we'll have we'll have discussion by the board. So, did you want to start? Okay.
Hi, thanks for laying this out. I think, I'm trying to remember on this project, was this the one involving the hydrogen?
No.
It's not, okay. So the wood processing plant, what are they going to produce or do?
They will be taking a variety of forest wood products and turning them into some different things such as fence posts, hog feed, or like chipped stuff, mulch, stuff like that.
Okay, good.
Into, usable product.
Yeah, and so I see 855 acres remain under dryland grazing with the 160 acre minimum. So the 17 acres set aside for this plant on the same property, and there's no conflict with incorporating something that may be under somebody else's management compared to who owns the bulk of the property?
So the entire 872 acres still is managed in accordance with the management plan by the property owner, and then they'll just lease that 17-acre portion to the individuals who will be running the plant.
Okay, so T5, that's allowable for them to sublease essentially a section to do that?
Yeah. Okay. They'll still be the legal owner of the whole site.
Okay. That was the only questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other board comments? Yeah, Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you. So this is related intrinsically to the Heartwood project. Is that correct?
The applicant for the will be Tuolumne Biomass LLC is the, I think, is the Heartwood the one that was in Oregon?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, they're basing it off a facility that they also operate in Oregon.
Okay, thank you.
It'll
I
be
asked
similar.
just 'cause it's hard to see with the applicant as the company, but what that's connected to, because that was a new, that's the property owner, but not necessarily a Tuolumne Biomass in that. So thank you for the clarification on it. So I wanted to ask, we're talking about right now a zoning change. We're not necessarily talking about the specifics of a planning project. My understanding, there hasn't been a planning proposal for what's going to be built and utilities and those types of things, correct?
So there was a conditional use permit application that was reviewed and issued by the Community Development Department Director.
Okay. I'm just wondering, can you explain a little more on the resolution as well? They'd be justifying the use in the neg deck under Williamson. So I understand agricultural processing is included in there, but to my understanding, this is more similar to an industrial process, and that's just where the planning question comes up is about utilities, transportation, those types of things, rather than, say, on-site recycling of fallowed, almond trees or something like that.
Yeah, so the item before your board right now is an amendment to a Williamson Act contract. That's what's being reviewed, and what you'll be making a decision on today is just the modification to a Williamson Act contract.
Okay. And I see that there wasn't any concerns filed related to it. I guess, wanted to ask since it is an agricultural processing somewhat, maybe it's adjacent or not. The questions on whether that would be opening up based on maybe the small committee's discussion, any type of legal challenge under that. I mean, is this fairly standard for a Williamson Act contract?
Yes, this is the process for a Williamson Act contract. We bring it to your board anytime there's a change either of the property that's going to be included.
Sorry, no, with the williamson Act contract, I mean specific to wood processing or something like that as an agricultural use.
Yes, so Resolution 10604
Yeah.
lists the types of things that your board can find to be compatible, consistent, all those types of things. And so this is applications within the scope of 10604 of the authority of your board to make that finding.
Okay.
It might help just to remind your board that the biomass project itself went through a separate environmental review to get that conditional use permit. It went through an initial study through CEQA, and that the appeal period for that's already run. The statute of limitations is already run. So what's before your board is just the amendment to the Williamson Act contract and the ag management plan, not the project itself.
Okay, I appreciate that info because I don't think the CUP was appealed to the board on any case, and so I know that there's been a lot of discussions, but where it was at with it, that helps a lot. So I appreciate that. I know it's hard to look at the rezoning without the project specifics because we may do a mitigated neg deck on environmental concerns, but then traffic circulation, stuff like that. But I think that answers and satisfies all my question. So thank you.
I just want to jump back in briefly. I'm sorry.
Excuse me, we have Supervisor Campbell that hasn't spoken yet.
And thank you, and I apologize for my tardiness. I did read your very detailed staff memo, so I feel comfortable talking about this. So I don't have too many questions. This is, we're talking about rescinding the previous Williamson Act contract and then establishing a new one with some of these changes in it. And you're basically asking if it's consistent with the general plan and some of the other rules that our county follows for these types of developments, and I find that it is. So that's kind of where I'm at with this.
All right, Supervisor Goldenberg, did you have one last question?
Yeah, just briefly, no zoning change here, period, right?
Correct. There is no zoning change.
Thank you.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion at this point.
I'll move to approve on staff recommendation, which would be, I think, to approve the change.
The modification of the Williamson Act.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion was made by Supervisor Brandon and seconded by Supervisor Goldenberg. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries 5-0. All right, where are we? I think we're on, let's see, agenda item number 11. Clerk, would you please read that item?
Item 11, consideration of reviewing emergency actions ordered by the county administrator's actions resulting from a series of storms from December 27th, 2022 through January 31st, 2023 for road repairs and damages, and determining there is a need to continue ongoing emergency actions under the authority of 22050 and TCOC 3.22.060 for fifth vote required.
Welcome, ladies. Nope, still not.
There you go. There we go. Sorry, it looked on. Blossom Scott-Heim, Supervising Engineer with your Public Works Department, and with me today, Dory Beats, your OES Coordinator. During the storms beginning December 27th through January 31st, 2023, county road crews and contractors responded to tree removals, landslides, road flooding, and major road damages resulting in closures on multiple county-maintained roads. On January 9th, 2023, in accordance with Public Contract Code and TCOC, your board approved delegating the authority to the county administrative officer to order any necessary action to repair or replace a public facility, take any directly related and immediate action required by that emergency, and procure the necessary equipment, services, and supplies for those purposes without giving notice for bids to let contracts. Consistent with the requirements of Public Contract Code, the resolution delegating authority states that the Board of Supervisors shall review any action ordered by the CAO at its next regularly scheduled meeting and at least every regularly scheduled meeting thereafter until the action is terminated. The board shall determine by a 4/5 vote that there is a need to continue the action if necessary. Although the storms have ended, the road damage is still under review and there are road right-of-way slopes still actively sliding. On February 16th, Buchanan Road, Wards Ferry Road, and Longeway Road were assessed by a geotechnical engineer. Wards Ferry Road remains closed with 3 major slides on both sides of the river. The U.S. Forest Service issues permits for recreational rafting on the Tuolumne River. Wards Ferry Road is used as the egress for these rafting tours. A 200-foot-long section of roadway and shoulder on the Groveland side of Wards Ferry Road is still actively sliding, with a large portion of the roadway already over 1.5 inches lower than the remaining roadway. Geotechnical boring will hopefully tell us the extent of the slide and help us repair a design solution. If we can expedite the repair, we will do so under emergency contracting, fixing this site first and then concentrating on the other sites so that we can get the rafting companies back in business. It is recommended that your board determine there is a need to continue the ongoing emergency actions described above. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, I've had lots of calls and emails from rafting companies. Do you have any best guess?
We're hoping to have the boring rig out before the end of the month, and then the results from that will tell us kind of what our repair solutions are. It could be, it really depends on how deep into the hillside the slide is cutting.
Okay. Sounds serious.
Yeah.
Thanks. Board, do you have any questions regarding this item?
I'm sorry,
Supervisor
just brief.
Goldenberg?
We're looking at the damage only on that one section or in total?
We'll be doing geotechnical boring at all of the slide locations. So
Okay.
3 on Wards Ferry and 2 on Buchanan.
Okay. Yeah, obviously, it's no secret the amount of rain that we may be receiving the end of this week, which may cause additional damage. So my question would be, can we amend a declaration, look for potential funding to assist if that occurs?
Hold on. Cody.
Thank you, Supervisor Goldenberg. I can address that briefly. So this is to review emergency actions taken in response to the emergency declaration that this board ratified with regard to the December and January storms. There's an item on the agenda for this meeting to ratify a declaration of emergency for the March storms.
Okay. Okay, my apologies, and
That will cover-
appreciate the clarification. Yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, I'm going to go to the audience. Any questions from the public? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so it was moved by Supervisor Campbell and seconded by Supervisor Brandon. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstentions? Carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. You might want to stay put because I'm going to go to number 13 next. And Clerk of the Board, can you please read item number 13?
Item 13, consideration of adopting Resolution 16-23, proclaiming of a local state of emergency due to severe weather in February and March 2023, as required by the California Emergency Services Act, Article 14, Section 8630B, delegating authority to the county administrative officer to order any necessary action to take any directly related and immediate action required by this emergency and procure the necessary equipment, services, and supplies for those purposes without giving notice for bids to let contracts pursuant to Public Contract Code Section 22050 and Tuolumne Ordinance Code Section 3.22.060, and authorizing the civil engineer under the direction of the County Director of Transportation to have any work upon county highways done under their supervision and direction pursuant to California Public Contract Code Section 20395C. 4/5 vote required.
All right. Another declaration, but different storms.
A different storm, absolutely. And just to remind both the board and the public that every time there is an event and a disaster, we would be asking to proclaim for every one of those. Part of the reason is the funding then gets associated for each of those. They often do not get combined, even though, as Supervisor Goldenberg alluded to, we may have an additional impact to those roads as a result of this storm. So we have a lot of tracking that goes on in our offices with respect to when an event starts and ends, when the damage actually occurs as a result of those, so that we can ask for the appropriate reimbursements or identify projects for future funding. So in this particular instance, as you know, we have started to see impacts from the storm, and the governor has now since, from the state of California, proclaim a local emergency, and we then would add to that and be requested to add it to the county list for that proclamation of impacts as it relates to this particular storm. I'm glad Cody's here, we have combined the two, as opposed to normally what we would have done was proclaim from the CAO side and then come back for ratification and then ask to continue. So we're trying to be anticipatory, I guess is the right word, less times for us to come back from different arguments or different items, excuse me. So in that sense, these particular storms that struck in late February and early March that are continuing where we see impacts today. So we are asking for the board to proclaim a local state of emergency and consider adopting this resolution, and happy to answer any questions about the impacts that we've seen so far and what we also will anticipate.
All right, so do we have questions of the board for?
No question. I just had one quick comment, if that's
Go ahead.
permissible. No, just that delegating authority to, the county administrative office to do this type of thing, any necessary action is important, and I feel very comfortable with giving that direction for our CAO to do.
Supervisor Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you, Dory and Blossom, for the work that you're doing and for preparing this for us. One question that I get frequently from residents, seems day by day, hour by hour almost, I'm getting texts and emails and phone calls about folks that have had significant damage to their property. We have a couple of families that have been displaced in my district due to trees falling through their homes. And a question that I frequently get is, for lack of a better term, when we pass these resolutions, what's in it for me as a homeowner? I understand that these can kind of release funds for public infrastructure and reimbursing the county for some of the work that we have to do to clear roads and repair some of the damage. Is there a possibility that this could release some state or federal disaster funds that could directly impact homeowners as a result of passing a proclamation?
Yes, absolutely. So we, as an operational area for Tuolumne County, then track those types of impacts, and we are doing so since the beginning of this storm, as we did in the December, January storms. In the December and January, we did not have enough individual residential impacts that met the threshold of 25 homes or more. We likely will meet that threshold this time around based on already the numbers that we have heard, and that's not all of those impacts. A lot of the impacts may not be seen until after the snow melts and will come in the next couple of days as the rain comes. So we anticipate potentially the process is for your board then to proclaim and the county to proclaim a local state of emergency. We then push that to the state level. The governor has already proclaimed we would be added onto that declaration and then assigned individuals who are asking us certain questions. When we do proclaim, then we are submitting what we call initial damage estimates that are coming from the public entities, but then we are also tracking what some of those individuals are and if there's individual assistance. So if we proclaim, the governor proclaim, then it opens up the door for public assistance, which is to the public governmental entities, and then individual assistance that would become available. It will then be our job to make sure that information is gathered to request individual assistance. Last storm, we didn't meet the threshold, so we were denied individual assistance. This one, we will be requesting it so that individuals can be eligible for some of the assistance that would come to them in that declaration process.
Okay, and what kind of assistance are we talking about? Is it if my roof is damaged from a tree fall, I can get it repaired and apply to the state for reimbursement for that, or how?
Yeah, so the individual assistance program is based on certain thresholds. First and foremost, every homeowner needs to exhaust any insurance. So if there's insurance. The same process that we as a government agency has to follow, we have to show that we've been maintaining whatever impact. Roof, for example, if you haven't been able to maintain your roof as required or as standard process, it's not Tuolumne County that comes out. It will be the state, Cal OES, and/or FEMA, if they become involved, that will come in and meet individually with those individuals. We recommend, if possible, that the minute you have damage to your home, that you're taking pictures and you're date stamping those pictures. If you have before pictures, we recommend, a lot of homeowners do this as a part of their insurance, taking pictures of what your house or foundation or roof may have looked like so that we can see very clearly the before and the after. What ends up happening is if we do get individual assistance for Tuolumne County, there will be an applicant briefing, and then they will come out and they individually deal with each property owner to process the claim. And it will be up to the property owner to provide all of the required documentation that will be needed. And yes, financial assistance is a part of that based on making sure that all of those other items have been checked and insurance has been done first. And then there is possibility for getting reimbursement to repairs for those items, yes.
Okay, so I imagine that would be lend itself more to the hardest hit types of homes.
Correct. So remember, for individual assistance, there must be at least 40% damage to your home to qualify to get us to that 25 or more threshold.
Okay.
So we have to have 25 or more homes that have 40% more damage.
Okay. Thank you very much for
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. I think it really highlights why this is an important first step into kind of getting the ball rolling on releasing some of the state and federal money that might be out there.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Supervisor Kirk.
And I don't mean to re-ask the question, because I think you answered it, because I even sent you Ron Doss, so the damage to the home has to be 40, which is basically pretty much a huge loss. It can't be, it's not just going to be a roof. It would have to be something even more substantial, correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
40% or more damage to the unit.
So I think I spoke incorrectly then. So sorry if you had a few
That's
people
okay.
coming away.
That's okay. We have people to help answer those questions, so.
Okay, thank you.
What number do people call if they want to reach out?
209-533-6395.
And can they email as well?
Yes, oes@co.tuolumne.ca.us.
Okay. Any other board questions? Seeing none, I'm going to go to the public. Any questions from our public? Okay. So we have to go ahead and make this declaration. Is that correct?
Correct. You're proclaiming and adopting the resolution.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
Adopt Resolution 16-23, proclaiming of a local state of emergency due to severe weather, February, March 2023, as required by the California Emergency Services Act, Article 14, Section 8630B, delegating authority to the County Administrator's Office, and the rest of the language contained.
And I'll second that. So we have a motion by Supervisor Goldenberg and a second by Supervisor Half. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, I think we're on our last item. Is that correct? Item number 12. Tanya, would you please read that one?
Item 12, presentation on recent changes to the Brown Act and direction regarding remote public participation.
And who's making that presentation?
I'll start it. Good afternoon, Board. Sarah Carrillo, County Council. I want to present on some of the changes to the Brown Act regarding teleconferencing, which we also call remote appearance by board members. As you know, the Brown Act is the state's open meeting law. It applies to posting of agendas, requires an opportunity for the public to comment on items before your board takes action, and it also defines what a meeting is, which is a majority of the legislative body at the same time and location to hear, discuss, deliberate, or take action on any item that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of your board. So prior to the pandemic, the Brown Act had rules regarding board member teleconference procedures, and those procedures required the majority of legislative body to participate from a location within the boundary of the jurisdiction. But for those that are participating remotely, then we actually had to post notice and the location on the agenda of where the board member was going to be. We had to allow public access at that remote location, and the access also had to be ADA accessible. Then during the pandemic, for health and safety reasons, the governor suspended some of those Brown Act requirements. And then ultimately the legislature adopted AB 361, which modified those teleconference procedures. And those remain in effect, but they can only be used when there's a declared state of emergency and we need to promote social distancing. So more recently, we have AB 2449 that came into effect, and it is specific to, again, board member teleconference or remote participation. So what the law says now is that in order to use this new teleconference procedure, there has to be a quorum of your board meeting in a singular location, and that site has to allow public access. And also the public has to be able to attend remotely if one of your board members is attending remotely. In order for the board member to participate remotely under AB 2449, you have to have just cause, or there needs to be an emergency circumstance, which is defined. That includes caregiving for a loved one, child, parent, that type of thing, an illness or disability that prevents the board member from participating in person, or you're traveling on county-related business. The other thing about AB 2449 is that board members are not allowed to teleconference for a period of more than 3 consecutive months or 20% of the regular meetings within a calendar year. And when you are teleconferencing, you must use both audio and visual technology. So we're not going to be able to be on Zoom and not have the camera on. We're going to have both during the meetings. It also states that if there's any technical disruption during the meeting, no action can be taken until that disruption is corrected. And then separately, there's SB 1100 that went into effect, and it also just discusses removal of individuals for disruptive behavior once they've been warned. So the point today was just to alert your board and the public about these new requirements, and then CAO Riggs will talk about some of the operational issues.
Before I get started, did you have any questions for Sarah about any of what she said? Supervisor?
Yeah, just one question. This was brought up at another meeting where there, multiple counties, multiple entities coming into a teleconference of some type, whether with these rules, we've been kind of getting used to, I think, tuning in from home or tuning in from whatever the convenient location is, but whether you could have that posted as a hybrid where you may have 5 meetings, for example, such as this, or in a conference room that the people in that area can attend and share, and whether that would still count under the same kind of teleconference rules. I might not be explaining that very well. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I got it. I think that I think the way the law is written is that if there's a majority, there still has to be a majority of that body, even if it's a JPA, right? So there are multiple jurisdictions, still have to be meeting in one physical location that allows public access, and then others could remote in. So I don't know if that answers your question exactly.
So specifically, the example is the Economic Development District. So we have 5 counties with 5 centers that they could have these meetings as normal, right? That would be a public meeting like this. And whether they would be required to travel to one to have that majority, or whether having that notice at those places would be considered kind of the majority at a place and not really conferencing in from home or meeting one of the just cause.
Right. I think what you could use is the sort of old Brown Act procedures that are still in effect, the teleconference procedures where there is, but I think that even that says there's still a majority of the members at one physical location. We can talk about that a little bit more, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so real quickly, what I wanted to do is update the board. Some of this you're aware of, but others may not. So we have had the privilege in the CAO family to welcome 3 new babies. And as a result of that, we have 3 individuals who happen to help run our meetings who are will be intermittently out of the office, and 2 for significant period of time. So with that being said, we will not be able to accommodate remote participation until one of them returns full-time. So I just want to make sure your board is aware of that. We're sensitive to it. I know how the board feels about making sure we have the ability to have participation in any form that we can, but until such time as we see them return, we have limited capacity. So just asking for your board's patience while we work through that. And then the update for, we are, as your board is aware, working on the commission room. So we had good news yesterday. Sorry, I'm going to back this up so I'm not quite so loud. Yesterday, Roger had told me that the equipment has arrived for both the the committee room and for the EOC. Now what we're doing is finalizing any of the construction that needs to be finalized, and then coordinating to get the contractor in to install the equipment and begin the process. And I know that Roger had actually we had started recruiting for the position. Honestly, I haven't asked him if he's been successful in getting that position filled yet, but I know he was recruiting. And that would be kind of like a committee, we're talking AV. It's an AV, I'm trying to think what Gabe's position is, AV communications analyst. So it would be like a junior analyst that they would be able to start training under Gabe and learning how to do this type of stuff. So that's all really exciting. We're hoping fairly soon we'll have that all up and running. And then, so that committee room would be in the Francisco building. We'd have the board room. And the goal is eventually the EOC will be fully operational with all the new AV equipment, and that would be the go-to place when we have these types of emergencies for briefings and everything else that needs to take place. And I think that's it. Any questions for me?
Yeah, I have one. So it's the AV equipment came in for not only the CRCs, but also the equipment room, but it sounds like it also came in, for the committees and commissions room, but also it came in for the EOC.
It did, yes.
So it's 4 different places.
Right. We don't make the EOC available to the public.
Right.
But yes, it is, now they'll be, like I said, they're going to be working with the contractor to get that scheduled and installed. Yeah,
Great.
it's exciting.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Not a question, just a comment.
Go ahead.
So I appreciate, there's some changes here. I think people really want remote meetings. By and large, we found that out, certainly during COVID, people, and they got used to it. So even though in the one portion of this memo, it says it's not legally required unless a board member is participating remotely, I would just ask for consideration and with my fellow board members that we look to do remote when staffing is available, realizing we've got some limitations right now, but try to do that whenever possible, both for board meetings and committee meetings, because people really appreciate that and would like to participate, and understanding there's some quorum issues too that we need to meet.
Supervisor Brandon.
Thank you. And I just wanted to add, I think when something comes up, illness and whatnot, and we can't prepare for it, I understand that we're in limited capacity. There are times when we have planned things. And so I hope that we can also, where we can, and we may have a board member that is unavailable due to us doing other duties, we have a ledge conference or something like that, that we will be able to try and specifically have remote participation for that member. I know that maybe that's on a case-by-case basis, but if we can at least try to have that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, as long as I have one of the two people here who can do that, we will make it happen. If neither are here, I don't know that I can promise we can make that, we can accommodate it. And I will do our best, I promise. There are only two people who can make that happen for us on the board clerk level. Was just asking Sarah, you brought up a good point about the board committees and commissions and remote participation. So I wanted her to give you an update of how this would apply, these new rules to board committees or there's no commissions, board committees.
This law is the Brown Act. It applies to all local legislative bodies, so including your committees, your JPAs, anything that is a Brown Act body, it applies to. And I did send out to our staff that oversees those committees. So when this law first came out, I did send an email. I think that your board was on it. So I know that they're aware of this.
Supervisor Campbell.
And and thank you, Chair. If you could kind of tell me, Ms. Creel, is this supposed to be the end-all, be-all, or is this, because we've talked about this obviously a lot at CSAC because it impacts that group a great deal in their various counties, including ours. And I know that there is work to change this and make it evolve in the future. Is this being sold by the governor or in the legislature as the final word on how these meetings are going to be conducted, or when do you see amendments to this coming in the future?
This new law remains in effect until 2026, and then we'll see what the legislature does. I know that there's been talk about complete revamp of the Brown Act, but I don't know what timeline they're on. But yeah. I would expect to see, because the Brown Act is not great about addressing all the technology that we're all using now. So I would expect to see some of that incorporated into whatever changes.
Right, and that's kind of what I was getting at, is that this, in a lot of ways, is a return to the way things were before COVID-19 for those of us who weren't on the board prior to 2020. This is pretty much standard for the world we existed in. And I think that given changes in technology and people's expectations for public meetings, we have to kind of evolve with the times. And this doesn't really, in my opinion, and I think others, that this doesn't really hit the mark. But I understand that it is temporary, and it's what we have to work with right now. I guess the lawyers are going to fight it out at various levels of government now, I guess.
I'd like to see temporary come this side of 2026, really. I see the Planning Commission specifically as, because it takes representatives from all around the county, and if they have to meet in person, that can be a problem. So I'd like to see this sooner than later.
Yeah, and it's for me. I'm actually okay with the rules it puts on elected or appointed board members. It's maybe not necessarily convenient for everybody, but when you get into committees where you have people from all over the county that are giving of their personal time to participate and be active, and you have to be here at this time in order for your vote to count. I think, given the advances in technology that we've seen, and I think we could probably do better, but we'll see. That's just my soapbox, I guess.
No, and I appreciate your comments, Supervisor Campbell. A lot of that reasoning went into us approving a position to help do this. So, thank you.
Supervisor Kirk.
I just want to, I heard a little bit about what you said, Tracy, about there being two, I think you said two of the clerks who are able to run the meetings. I would just reiterate and hope that if one of us is away on county business or one of us was sick, I don't know, I'm not going to get into the weeds too much, but I would hope that one of them, at work, if I'm going to be out of the office, I have to schedule my vacation time, to make sure somebody else is behind me. So I'm just hoping that there's always somebody here who could accommodate that if we ever ran into that. I understand there's perfect storms, but I
Right,
hope.
yeah, this one was definitely unanticipated to have three.
No, this one, this I get. I'm just saying moving forward,
Yes.
believe me, I get it.
This is
I'm
the
just
first
moving-
time we actually have any depth at all. If you
Cool.
had been here previously, it was Alicia Jamar, and she was it forever, for a very long time. So we thought we were really great we have some depth, we're great. We were able to get Tanya to come in and help, and then this happened.
No, I get
It's
it.
like,
My comment is for once we get past that,
Yes, for
that
sure.
bridge. Okay,
Yep.
cool.
So this is for our information only. There's nothing to be decided upon. All right. So with that, I don't think I called for public comment. Anybody in the room want to comment on this? Oh, yeah. Got to turn it on again.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. There was a state senator, Leland Yee, and he took it upon himself to involve himself with the Brown Act, so he made several updates to it. And then his behavior caused him to go to jail, so now he's no longer in the state Senate. But my concern is there's a large number of Brown Act violations going on in this county, and one happened just recently. So the law changed, I think it was 2018. So it's always been part of the Brown Act that you have to put up an agenda at the site of the meeting, 72 hours in advance of a regular meeting, because the whole point of you meeting is that the public can participate, because you're here for the public's benefit. And technology is nice and all that other stuff, but not everyone in this county has access to technology. So you become exclusive instead of inclusive in that sense. So in 2018, to accommodate some of the technological changes, the Brown Act changed, I believe, on January 1st, so that if you, as an entity, have a website, your agenda must be posted 72 hours ahead of your meeting, just as it is at the meeting place. And your agenda has to include the site of the meeting, the date, the time, the committee, what's on your agenda. And that is not being done. So the Area 12 had planned their meeting with a public hearing. So I was passing out their info and their surveys for their public hearing. So on that weekend before their Monday meeting, I couldn't find an agenda anywhere. No agenda on their website, on their webpage. I wasn't going to walk all the way out to Standard Road to see if it was on their door. And I wasn't going to walk out to Stryker Court when it was snowing to see if it was on that door. So I said, well, this is a potentially illegal meeting. So then they emailed me back on Monday and said, well, we canceled the meeting, but we're still going to have the public hearing. So I don't know if they had the public hearing, but if they did, it was certainly illegal. And I don't see how you could have a public meeting without a proper agenda. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else? All right, with that, I think that closes out this particular agenda item, and we are on to reports. So I'd like to start with Eric. You have any reports? How about Tracy?
I'm not going to get this too close again. Just real quick, I had mentioned earlier that we have 3 new members of the family here. So we have Josie, who is a beautiful little girl, and then we have William and Garrison. And if you haven't seen them, we'll get some pictures to you, but those are 3 new members of the CAO family. And secondly, I did email you guys out, but something that I had wanted to do for years was to get the Governmental Finance Officers Association Budget Award. And that was when I started eyeing early on when I first came into the office with my predecessor, Craig Pedro. And we knew with the old software we couldn't make that happen. The board supported us to move to what we now have, which is OpenGov. And for the second year in a row, staff have been, the organization has been awarded this award. We still have work to do, but I want to say thank you to the immediate team who makes this work, which I put in the email, which is Eric and Liz. Jason Terry helped a lot before he left, and Mark and Bobby. Not to mention every single department who puts in the work for them to bring all of this together and then put it into one package. So super excited about that. Want to make sure you see that if you haven't had a chance. It is in your email. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Sarah.
Sure, just a couple of notes. It's conference season, so one of my attorneys, our newest one, Catherine, attended a Cal Forest conference just last week in Sacramento. It was really good for her, and that's perfect because of the MSA work that she's doing. So then I have another attorney that's going to be attending a probate mental health training. They're going to focus on the CARE Act this week, so she'll be there. And then you probably saw, but our office was involved in a lot of the emergency situations, helping draft resolutions and staff reports so that your board could declare the emergencies. And that's what we've spent the last few weeks doing. So thank you.
Thank you. Tanya.
I just want to thank the board for their patience as I come on board for relief work. It's been a pleasure, and I'm excited about the baby's arrival. And while I don't have anything to report directly on work, just thank you again for the opportunity.
You're doing a great job. Thanks, Tanya.
Thank you.
Okay, board members, who'd like to start?
I have very little report out. Normal meetings, been attending, still working with the city of Sonora. Thanks, Tanya. We appreciate you very much. And, my availability has been a little bit limited, but I'm working to do the best I can to participate wherever I can. Thank you.
Supervisor Campbell?
Thank you, Chair. So last week, I guess I'll start with the general issue that I wanted to make the board aware of, which is that I participated in the California State Association of Counties Board of Directors meeting last week in Sacramento. And these are usually, it's usually pretty quick, these meetings, but this one went very long, and it was because we were developing, at CSAC, developing a comprehensive homelessness plan. And so obviously there's a lot of discussion, and it's kind of boiled into 2 camps, urban and rural. And I would say that the discussion was very productive in understanding what of all 58 counties, what's happening in rural communities and what their needs are, and then what's happening in urban communities where there are a lot of incorporated cities that have the ability to share some of the burden that counties are experiencing, and developing an idea of what we want to see from the governor. And to his credit, I would say the reason why this effort is being undertaken is because there was an offer made from the governor's office to hear what the 58 CSAC counties want to see in a homeless plan. And so we've taken him up on that offer. We're developing the plan, and I think the thing that was really heartening to see was that all of the rural counties were pretty in lockstep. We had very similar concerns, and I think that message was heard louder than what I've heard in years. in Sacramento about what the needs are of rural communities where homelessness is concerned. So it was a much more lively meeting than I think I've ever had at CSAC, but I think a really good product is going to come out of it. I had many meetings over the past, I can't remember when we had our last reports, but I'll save you the details of that. There was one issue from my district, some development going on. Someone wants to build a grocery store and is having trouble getting a liquor license. And my understanding, and what I'm hoping we can look into a little more, is that our county gets a certain allocation of liquor licenses for different purposes. So whether you have a bar, whether you have a restaurant, whether you have a grocery store, which is the case in this case, and we have no more liquor licenses for grocery stores. And so my understanding of the process, and of course I'm not an expert, and ABC is can be a very difficult bureaucracy to work through sometimes, is that we would need to request more licenses for various purposes at the board level. And so that was one of the things that I wanted to look into, just because we're trying to be more open for development and not letting red tape get in the way of what I think is a good idea for our community. So that was just one of the issues that I've seen coming up. The only other things that I would mention are all storm related. I think that I don't have to tell the four of you that our public works and road crews are kicking butt. And there's a lot of difficulty with communities that live on private roads, though. And it's totally, we as a county have to plow public roadways, the roadways that taxpayers pay for, and their taxes growing to pay for public works. So I don't know what we can do just to kind of educate folks that live up in the higher areas that are in more isolated areas on private roads to how we can, what I'm thinking of is having a county list of private plowing companies or people that offer that service, so that when someone calls me or they call Public Works and they say, please come plow our roads, and we have to break the news to them that they're on a private road and that we can't use public resources for that purpose, we can then say, but there's good news, here's a list of people who can do that work. I don't feel like I have that right now, and it would be very helpful if we could look into developing that in the county.
Emma from Public Works has developed such a list. She's given it out to some of my constituents up in the Groveland area.
I'm going to have to grab that from you, because that would be wonderful. And then I think keeping, I'll leave it at that. So those are the main issues that I'm seeing at the moment.
All right, Supervisor Kirk.
Yeah, regular meetings as everybody else, but like Campbell said, I think I've been inundated with my district being buried in snow and people really frustrated, with some of the plowing services. And I will reiterate what Supervisor Campbell said. They're going on lots of hours of lots of work with little sleep. And so I'm getting word of people blocking roads, and, we're having to call the sheriff department for them to come remove people. So those are kind of the things I've been dealing with, and I want to thank Public Works over the weekend, even on Sunday, texting, calling, trying to resolve some of these issues. I do have a phone call meeting this afternoon with the Public Works Department in another county, because I used to live in this county, and my understanding is plows, if your car was on the side of the road, you were fair game, you would be plowed off the road. And guess what? They didn't really have issues with people parking on the road. So in my district, I'm not trying to be cruel, but people are complaining about one way in, one way out, when yet their cars are the very cars on the road which are causing one way in, one way out. So like I said, I have a call in today, a meeting with this Public Works Department. I'm going to get the ordinance code. I want to look at our ordinance code. But if that's the case, and then I'm kind of headed down that road, But before, potentially, if our board were to sign up on that, it would have to be, you know, a campaign where we have to let people know you're fair game if you're parked on the side of the road, because it comes down to EMS issues, safety issues, comes down to people. There's certain parts of Newark and Sierra Village that literally we couldn't get people out because they were parked on the side of the road. So I got a call in today. All that to say, thank you, Public Works. Thank you for the communities who are up there for being patient. I know it's been a struggle. I've lived up, you know, in District 3 basically my whole life. I lived in Tahoe. I lived in Mammoth. I've seen large amounts of snow, but I would agree that these huge amounts of snow in such a small time period do feel a little different, you know, last year, this year. So there are, outside my house, there's more snow piled in front of my house than I've ever seen. So it is a pretty phenomenal time. And just remind folks and us that, you know, these times come and go, but I will leave it at that. I'll let you guys know how that meeting goes with Public Works, and I'll be looking into how we can't support our roads crews with getting these roads bigger instead of just abandoning people because their cars are in the road. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Supervisor Brandon.
Great, thank you. I wanted to start out, we had our Columbia Area Advisory Commission meeting yesterday, and a thank you to County Fire who came through and were able to present on just the updates of what's being discussed overall with the fire station. And next week, there's going to be somebody coming out from the state parks, assess the historical value and whatnot of the properties there, hoping that they will find that it may be worth surplusing or transferring ownership of some of those, given the public safety need within the area, because otherwise it's very restrictive what they operate under for changes. But it was a very good presentation and very honest with, I think, all the options and considerations. I spent a little less than a week in DC, and I want to thank the board for funding that and being supportive of that. I thought it was a very good conference. Had the opportunity on broadband. As you know, I'm the vice chair of the Technology and Telecommunications Committee with the National Association of Counties. So we had our meeting, about 100 different commissioners, as they're called in most states, but supervisors, 5 vice chairs, and then Terrell Clark, our chairperson. We passed 5 resolutions, 2 of which I had co-sponsored, one on open broadband networks so that people can do that if a local jurisdiction chooses to, and then another one on the broadband mapping data, which was a shared concern. We had a really great lobby visit with Senator Amy Klobuchar and her staff. She sits on the Senate Commerce Committee, has been a big supporter on internet. I very much felt like we were heard. It was a very productive meeting. I got to sit to my left with Terrell. Terrell helped spearhead basically getting these broadband investments. And then Terry Burrows to my right, who is a 30-year telecommunications executive who owns his own company there and started as a lineman. And as I like to put it, and then me. We, I think, came in very united. We were very clear with what we wanted, which was to not delay this, but to ensure rural counties are counted, that we should have not just accurate data that the ISPs need to provide, but also we should have the benefit of the doubt. And so the work done by our staff, including Len, that should apply more often, that we should assume there are more errors to surrounding counties who may not have even the staff capability and investment to access the technical assistance. So that was really excellent. We had a follow-up meeting later on with the FCC Chairwoman's office expressing the same things as well. Thank you for the progress made on it. It's not where we need it to be yet, and we look forward to future rounds of challenging and what we could use as very specific, tangible updates for that. So anyway, that ended up going very well. It was otherwise a very enjoyable conference. I was able to meet the Forest Service Chief as well, a number of trainings while I was out there. It's fascinating to hear how other counties operate. There was also a major issue coming up with public land. So as you know, we received the LATF funds that came in. NACO with the Western Interstate Region pulled together a discussion group talking about requests to counties that 1% of those funds would be allocated to establish a nonprofit public land center. The idea being, we've got a lot of new members of Congress. We would like to see those federal lands and good neighbor payments PILT, SRS, everything, continue and hopefully increase. I believe that will be a request that comes down at some point. Their goal is to raise roughly a $15 million endowment that would be able to, through interest, accumulate enough to run a full-time center kind of in perpetuity. I think there was a very broad support. Certainly one of the big discussions has been ensuring that not just ag, timber, and extraction-based industries and ranching are in there, which they've been very prominent, of course, in those groups, but recreation, which is just as valid for many of these public lands counties. Other than that, I had a really great call with Sheriff Pooley. We've been making progress on hiring deputies, and so it's nice to see that the investments we've made are helping in that very critical issue. I attended a memorial for Harry Olsen. He's been up with Sierra Nonprofit Services for a very long time. Supervisor Half, thank you for being there as well. I know he's going to be missed. He always had a lot of ideas and a very systems approach to thinking about just about everything, and a very smart person. We're having good meetings with the Economic Development District, so I've sat in on a couple just as the alternate. We're looking at the 5-year plan there and how that might integrate with some of the other things the county's looking at. And then one last kind of thing that I'd like to bring up at some point after a further discussion with staff has been a real big desire from my Jamestown Advisory Group for youth mentorship. A lot of these kids, they might not have the parents are either working or they can't be there or provide them what they need to be in, latchkey household type thing. And the community and one particular business owner, Citizen of the Year, would like to try and start a program that connects them with local seniors, local businesses, somebody that can be a very positive mentor in between when they have school and time with the family. One thought, and we discussed this with the school district, promotion club, and a number of other entities, was the potential use of the community hall, which post-COVID has a lot of the former reservations have been dropped off. So that's something I look forward to bringing back as a potential discussion to see whether that might be a place that could be used for that purpose for a little while as a pilot program. So thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you. Well, I've got a lot of snippets, so I'll try to run through them very quickly. Looks like the lights are closing down, so yeah. So back at the first part of February, I gave a talk, Q&A session with the Board of Realtors Governmental Affairs. We had our first housing collaborative, or maybe it was our second core team meeting. And then just to remind everybody, we will have our next housing collaborative meeting on May 18th. Then I went out to view the damage on Marsh's Flat Road with quite a few of the citizens out there. There's still water running over the road, and this was back in on the 9th, water running over, and it's bad. I always thought that the Old Wards Ferry Road was just the worst in the county. Well, add all the patches and holes and everything from that road and make it longer, and then have water rushing over it where you can't get out. That's Marsh's Flat Road. Then on the 10th of February, went with Dr. Lena Tran from Columbia College and the Capital Projects Manager, Mo, to the Groveland Community Resilience Center so she could see it for herself. She was just wowed. And as you may know, with the former president of college, we had worked out some kind of a verbal agreement for remote distance learning in the Groveland area using the classroom there. It never got in writing, so we're introducing Dr. Tran to this idea, and hopefully we'll come up with a good plan. On the 13th, we met in person at the Arts Board down in Merced, Supervisor Campbell and I. And then I gave a talk to the Business Council. That was on the 5th. I'm going back and forth here. And then as one of the board members for the Tuolumne County Water Agency, had quite a few meetings. We met with the Turlock Irrigation District and 2 board members and their manager on the 16th. Then on the 17th, met with the Calaveras Water District manager and 2 of their board members. And then on the 22nd, we had a meeting with the Utica folks for their water and power. Then on the 25th, the Saturday, not part of my duties as a board member, but as a board member of the Foothill Collaborative for Sustainability, helped put on the Seed Share event. It was very well received. It was the first time in 3 years that we'd done it in person again rather than drive-through. And we had a really good lineup of speakers that I hope we continue, and it was filmed. So if you missed any of those talks, and there were some really good ones, you can get it on accesstuolumne.org. And there was one that I led, and it was a panel discussion with 3 local farmers called Ask Your Farmer, Ask Your Local Farmer. It was really good. Then on the 2nd, I helped to open up the Groveland CRC for shelter, because we didn't have staff to do it, and I had the key, so I went up and opened it, and we were there all day. And last, I've been meeting with the Department of Technology. That's the new department in the state that's helping Caltrans with all of their broadband needs. And they are specifically planning for a digital equity a meeting somewhere in the 5-county region. You know, we have a broadband consortium that will probably be involved with that. And so Lynn DeGroot and I are starting to work with these folks, planning for that event sometime in the April, May, or June timeframe. And that's it. So what time do we have here? We have 2:42, and this concludes today's meeting. Thank you.